February 27th, 2026. The day this video is uploaded marks the official 30th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise. Over the past 30 years, Pokemon has expanded to unfathomable success in nearly every direction, from the video games, to the trading card game, to the anime series, and so much more. While all of these avenues are still around and constantly going, even the anime, which has since retired Ash as a main character and has now gone in a different direction, there is one aspect of Pokemon, specifically in the animation department, that seemingly and very quietly disappeared. That being the movie side of things, as it at one point seemed like there would always be some sort of annual Pokemon movie that would take aim at some legendary or mythical Pokemon that would be in relation to the current Pokemon generation at the time, giving Ash and those on the journey with him at those points a fun little side story from what's going on within the anime series. So after having 20 plus films, Pokemon seemingly pulled the plug on these yearly releases in 2020 after the release of the Secrets of the Jungle movie that introduces the mythical Pokemon Zarude. And since then, now 6 years later, we haven't had one Pokemon movie. So what happened to them? Are they gonna come back? These are answers we don't really know. It's safe to assume that we'll probably get more. Heck, maybe even today at the Pokemon Presents they have announced it, but I wouldn't know. I created this before that happened. A few years ago, I did an extensive deep dive into the Pokemon animation world, mainly taking a lot of time to dissect all of Ash's journey from his original start with the first episode of the anime in general from the end of the 90s, all the way to where Ash ends up in his final set of episodes that came out in 2023. Today, I wanted to expand my deep dives into the movies further than I did with my original series, getting a chance to also speak on the reboot set of movies that I didn't fully cover, and just celebrate this side of the Pokemon franchise for its 30th anniversary. So without further ado, let's get started with the first ever Pokemon movie, the movie that really traumatized every kid who went to the theaters to see it. Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, was a cultural turning point. Well, at least a major part of one. As we would see the rise of all these properties spreading throughout the world from Japan, Pokemon would take the lead, coming out swinging with its constant combo punches to your face and parents' wallets, with the video games, trading card game, and anime all hitting around the same time, one after another, building a massive attachment to the franchise for any kid at the time. But one of, if not the biggest moment, was the release of the first Pokemon movie in theaters. While the film originally came out in Japan in the summer of 1998, the build-up for the North American release, coming from someone who experienced it, was a feeling like no other. With all of the advertising making it seem like this was it, it's all been leading up to this moment. You need to be here, you need to witness it, and hey, you'll even get a sick Pokemon promo card if you come. Every parent at the time was unaware that they were taking their kids into something that will cause them to experience a now shared collective bit of trauma. The Pokemon are crying, the kids are crying. As an adult now, I'm still crying. Oh, sorry, it's just this totally real, not imaginary bowl of onions right here. Okay, I'm lying, it's the movie. But what also made this movie so special was a few big things. One, we get introduced to the Pokemon all Pokemon are formed from, Mew. Two, we get introduced to the Pokemon that was a man-made creation based on the DNA of the other OG Pokemon, Mewtwo. And three, a brand new Pokemon that isn't from the original at least 150 and was instead part of the or more to see part of the song. Because at this time, dog, what the heck was a Dawn fan? You know what I mean? Oh, I guess let's also not forget Snubbull. He did appear in the Pikachu's Vacation short that plays before this movie. Also, I guess Mew is a part of the or more to see as well, since Mew is Pokemon number 151. And also, did it ever bother anyone else that Mewtwo comes before Mew 1 in the official Pokedex order? Just me? You know, please tell me I'm not alone here. Anyway, lots of big moments all around. We get this Dragonite delivering mail. So where's our special delivery Dragonite promo card these days, huh? He's the OG Pokemon post worker. Pikachu, Charizard, frauds. I guess this promo card from the movie will be what I consider a special delivery Dragonite. Seriously though, this movie was advertised as this big smackdown wrestling event between Mewtwo and Mew. We were just given this teaser of Mewtwo in the anime as this unfathomable, unimaginable force. In the episode The Battle of the Badge, which premiered in North America on September 25th, 1999, we get to see Team Rocket's leader, Giovanni, show off this never-before-seen Pokemon that not only obliterates Gary, but then ultimately breaks away from its containment, giving us this greater mystery of a Pokemon that seems way too overpowered. Then it was about a month and a half wait until we would get to truly learn about Mewtwo. Just be glad it wasn't Mecha Mewtwo from the Pokemon Live Play, or even scarier, Mew 3.
Pokemon will return in a moment on Kids WB. Back to an all-new Pokémon on Kids WB!
If we want to be more technical, we really knew that Mewtwo was coming before we got a proper look at Armored Mewtwo in that one episode of the anime, as the first trailer for the Pokemon movie itself would premiere the month before that episode in August of 1999, in front of both Mystery Men, an underrated movie, and The Iron Giant, which is a masterpiece. This trailer fully shows us Mewtwo, and another trailer that would come out shows us this really awesome title of Mewtwo striking us back for something, so I think it was really smart to build the excitement of Mewtwo through both just movie promotion and within the episode that led up to the film's release. The movie serves as a side quest in the main journey and not a major story ending moment, just something that can happen on the side with our characters but not interfere with the journey going forward in the show. Here we get Ash, Misty, and Brock having one of their famous resting moments, enjoying some time to relax on their journey and eat some good food, but Ash gets challenged to a battle as the opening credits roll in. We see a new Pokemon known as Donphan that had not been introduced yet, and I love how Pokemon sprinkles into the shows and the movies these next generation Pokemon sometimes. But this was that moment where every kid in the theater at the time would scream in excitement over it. If you were a kid who hadn't seen the movie yet, you probably wouldn't believe the others talking about this new shown-off Pokemon. But if you were a kid who would believe any Pokemon thing right away at the time, well, I have a Mew under a truck to sell ya. Shortly after, Ash gets invited by a special delivery Dragonite to visit a new island, with some of the toughest trainers around making their way to this dangerous place and braving a terrible storm. Once the trainers who made it there are inside of this crazy looking castle, the entity that brought them all together is none other than Mewtwo. Surprise, surprise. I really love how Pokemon handles the character of Mewtwo, how we explore why he is doing what he is doing and the values that he carries so heavily. Before we see Mewtwo's plan, Team Rocket, who made their way into the castle, find this odd machine in the bowels of the structure that makes a clone of Meowth. Mewtwo then sends out these eyeball-looking Pokeballs that allows him to capture everyone else's Pokemon to send them down to the machine to begin cloning them, revealing the plans of letting the world suffer and get destroyed from this massive storm, and that all of the cloned Pokemon can stay with Mewtwo on the island. Ash puts up the biggest fight, especially when it comes to Pikachu being taken, as he does everything he can do to follow the ball once his Pikachu is captured and brought to the machine. Luckily, Ash is able to free his Pikachu after fighting the machine, but all of the clones had already been made, as they all get released and they go up to join Mewtwo above. Ash, however, gets his hands on the original Pokemon's Pokeballs, and entering Mewtwo's arena with all of the original Pokemon in one of the coolest entrances I have ever seen, as he then tries to straight up punch Mewtwo, because, you know, that was going to work, with him then getting sent flying sky high, but saved by none other than Mew, who had been spying out of curiosity on the whole thing. Mewtwo here snaps over the sight of Mew and is ready to fight it, as the clone Pokemon and the original Pokemon engage in battle with their counterparts. After a bit, the battles are getting out of hand. Both clone and non-clone Pokemon struggle to continue the fight, trading blow for blow, not truly understanding why they must fight. Why is all this mindless violence even happening? Meowth ends up having a more intellectual conversation with his clone about how much people, or Pokemon, do have in common with each other despite being different as they share this planet. Mew and Mewtwo's battle gets more intense as Ash refuses to see this go on, running out into the middle of the stadium right in between these two, major energy blasts clashing with one another, and now in a heart-pounding, silence-bringing moment, the dust settles, and Ash is revealed to have been turned into stone, where not a soul was okay. All of the humans, Pokemon, and clone Pokemon begin to cry as Pikachu rushes to Ash's side, pleading for his best friend to be okay, using all of his strength with Thunderbolt to somehow bring him back to life, but no matter how much he does, it just doesn't work, with him still refusing to give up. But all of the tears find their way to the middle of the arena, covering Ash in this form, and somehow being able to cure his stone ailment and bring him back to life. This was the moment that truly broke Mewtwo. Why do the Pokemon care for these humans so much when humans in his life only have used them for their bidding and battling? What makes you real or alive? Would a clone be just as equal as the Pokemon it came from? Having dealt with being this clone living in the shadow of Mew's DNA, forced to be this one thing when you would still have free will and learn about controlling your life. His hatred of Mew stemmed from being compared to and built from Mew. He must be better and stronger in every way is what it seemed. But learning that it doesn't matter if you're the original Pokemon or the clone of it, that makes you no less real and alive to be your own being. You have value regardless. The circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant, and it's what one does with life that determines one's destiny. Mewtwo sets off to find a place for him and all of these clones to go live freely, and how they choose, wiping the minds of everyone involved here, with everything kinda just being reset to before they went to the island. There's a lot to be said here about the treatment of Pokemon in general, and how they are viewed being under the ownership of a trainer, and used to fight in battles. We've seen great examples and bad examples of this throughout the anime itself, and Ash here is able to explain his relationship to his Pokemon, not by saying it out loud or having to figure out a gesture to express it, he just full-on jumps into danger immediately, giving it all he's got to save his Pokemon and everyone else's in the process. His actions were instinctual and done with love, expressing the power of this being greater than being explained. We have a detailed and emotionally charged look at battling, where this wouldn't be in the sense of fun and competition, but under the guise of violence. Mewtwo became the thing he hated, the creator having his creations be pushed to fight until they win or die trying. This isn't fair to them based on a result of what happened to him. There is a further dive into Mewtwo's true past with the extended cut story of Mewtwo's origins, where a young cloned Mewtwo deals with the dead daughter of Dr. Fuji, who he was trying to make a clone of as well, as a form of trying to bring her back to life. But it wouldn't be her, it would just look like her, as she would just be her own new being in any case. It's a pretty deep movie as far as children's animation goes, and it still gives you everything to keep you entertained. From the well-animated action, to the large selection of Pokemon seen, to the most emotional moment of the 90s for any kid ever. Ash here is willing to put himself in danger to save every Pokemon from being hurt themselves. All Pokemon, not just his or the other non-clone Pokemon, but the clone Pokemon as well, which means Mewtwo as well. His way of showing his care and passion towards Pokemon has grown larger each day, holding on to a promise he gave to Pikachu all the way back in the beginning of the anime. I think this movie is fantastic, and at the time it gave us kids a lot to think about. Oh, and also some free Pokemon cards. Yay! What's that? You want me to talk about my personal favorite Pokemon movie of all time? Sure, what the heck, why not? Twist my arm, why don't you? Oh, okay, stop. The rumors are true. Ash Ketchum is the chosen one. As Ash and the others were traveling in the Orange Islands, we get yet another movie that sidesteps the main plot of the show for something that won't really affect the show when we return to it, which is basically every Pokemon movie if we're being honest. Releasing on July 21st, 2000, Pokemon the Movie 2000, The Power of One, would release in theaters, and as opposed to my dad, who took me to see the first Pokemon movie, my mother took me to see this one. Little did I know at the time, but I was about to witness what would become my favorite of all the Pokemon movies. Ash here is at center stage to a more important degree than usual, as the gang arrives to a new island with the weather around the globe starting to act up, causing Pokemon to act up as well. Here we meet characters like Melody, who during this annual Legend Festival regales everyone with the tale of the Chosen One sent to help Lugia restore the balance as the harmony of fire, ice, and lightning are being disturbed. Whereas alone we shall fall, lest the earth shall turn to ash. Oh, there's an Ash right there. And he is claimed to be the chosen one from the story to help Lugia by gathering the 3 glass orbs from the 3 different surrounding islands that represent the legendary bird trio and bring them to a shrine to play the tune, which represents Lugia's cry, that'll save the day and end the festival. But you know, it's actually really happening. It's not just a tale right now. This one Pokemon collector is literally collecting the legendary birds, which causes the world to plunge into weather-based chaos. Lugia is a new Generation 2 Pokemon, specifically one of the 2 main legendaries from then, and this movie sparked my love for him and collecting a lot of the rare collectibles pertaining to Lugia. But I am nothing like this guy. I would never take it this far. The Pokemon collector named Lawrence III acts as the main villain of the film, looking for all 3 of the legendary birds in order to summon forth Lugia, opting to risk the world falling apart in order to capture and collect Lugia. Ash tries to collect the 3 orbs, but the situation with Lawrence is so bad that even Team Rocket ends up becoming the good guys, helping Ash as the fate of the world depends on these actions taken. How can you steal Pikachu if there's no world to steal Pikachu in? We also have Slowking as a Generation 2 Pokemon here, which would be a new evolution option for Slowpoke, where he can now talk and speak the prophecy, and I just love him. Lawrence becomes this representation of what being your average collector who enjoys the hobby but can lose sight of why you enjoyed it in the first place, as it turns into greed and all about money or having the best, the biggest, and the rarest thing just to put on your shelf. Right there. Very nice. But there is no end in sight. There is never a moment where you have enough. There's always some new thing to chase after. He is reminded of why he loved the hobby in the end, while holding all he had left, which was an ancient Mew card, which I feel so many people today can look back upon that specific card and feel the origins of the hobby somewhat in it for you. I mean, it's the promo card that we'd actually get for seeing this movie in theaters, so it just feels extra special to have it tied into the movie itself, kind of. And with how some Pokemon collectors are today on social media, focusing more towards the money aspect of everything, this movie character feels more true now, as plenty of people have lost sight of why they fell in love with the franchise in the first place, or even more realistically, are here in the hobby solely to profit. On the hero side, we legit get to root for Ash as this important figure in saving the world. The first movie feels a lot smaller and personable, while this expands the entertainment to the big budget action adventure that builds Ash's responsibility and maturity. It pulls more on Team Rocket to have more complexity in an even greater way, and for the shippers out there, Misty starts confronting some feelings she may have for Ash. I mean, Melody came in swinging with a whole new vibe, and Misty was all like, hey, you better back off a bit, that's my man's. Anyway, here's my graded film cell of melody from the movie. As the prophecy is unfolding, millions of Pokemon have made a migration to be at the Orange Islands, waiting at the ready as when Ash connects with Lugia, he explains that they came here in the off chance that they are called upon to help, and it may not seem like their fight, but this is their world too, and it became their fight to stand by the Chosen One and Lugia. Lugia emphasizes that the one who can really make a difference right now is Ash, as he ends up at the right place at the right time to be living out this experience and showing that just one person, no matter how big or how small, can make a difference. Ash made that difference, selflessly, and with the help of his friends and Pokemon making their differences, helping him along this entire journey. Pokemon 2000 is so freaking good, and for all of these reasons, I just think it holds up as my favorite. I like Ash as a hero troped up character here. Sure, it's cheesy, it's predictable, but I've said it always and I'll say it again, it's the heart that he has that always makes the journey we get to see him on just that much more special. Pokemon the movie 2000, The Power of One, holds such a special place in my heart. I just love it. You know what I want in my Pokemon movies? More mature, dark themes that give me something to think about and walk away questioning what matters in life the most and how to deal with trauma. So yay, we have Pokemon 3, the movie, Spell of the Unknown, with it taking place in the middle of Ash's main adventure, but rather than it being fully disconnected from the stories in the main anime, there are some definite fun payoffs here for the dedicated Pokemon fans. If you went to see this film in theaters, then good news for you, it came with another Black Star promo card, with it being a reverse holo-like Entei card. And I mean, come on, just look at how beautiful it is. That Ken Sugimori art be hitting. I love this. So this movie is all about Entei and the unknown, but the Entei, well, may not really be Entei. Here, at the start of the film, we meet a Pokemon researcher named Spencer Hale and his daughter Molly, whose mom is no longer around, but we see them having a nice time together in their mansion as he reads her a story about the powerful legendary beast known as Entei. But later he ends up going to check out some specific ruins that lead him to be entranced by the unknown, as he then is seemingly made to disappear by these special unknown powers. Molly doesn't take this news well and collects the boxes of these mysterious unknown tiles that were brought back and uses them to bring her family back together, spelling Papa, Mama, and me. This triggers the unknown to reveal themselves as the mansion turns into a crystal-like structure for protection, and as she looks at the Entei in the book, missing her father, the unknown respond to these emotions, merging those two things, creating what seems like a real Entei, but now having the voice of her father, who is just Dan Green. Thanks, Yugi. And from here, Entei has this overbearing protection of her and will do whatever she asks for or wants. Ash and the crew get introduced here as they are just passing through town, essentially. Of course, upon seeing the effects of the unknown happening, things seem pretty bad, noting all of the crystal-esque structures infesting the area. They even have the news there reporting this go down, and man, Ash and friends surely know exactly when and where to show up when crazy happenstance events are going down. There's also some connection that the Ketchums have to the Hales, thanks to specifically Ash's mom and Professor Oak, and speaking of them, both of them are heading towards the area in fear of what's happening, so I guess it's a good thing that they watch the news. They pull up quickly and Ash's mom speaks to him about Spencer working with Professor Oak at one point, and as for Molly and Entei, they're watching the news as well, and Molly wants a mom figure back in her life, leading Entei to go out and take Ash's mom from the connection she already has to her, hypnotizing her to make her believe she's Molly's mom, and runs off. This news footage is making its rounds even to places where some familiar Pokemon may be at who now learn of the situation and that Ash is now involved in it. Ash uses his Pokemon to help scale the crystallization here, as he needs to get his mama back, and hey, for a minute she starts breaking out of the trance that she's in. But Molly wants a piece of Ash and his friends in a Pokemon battle, being excited about this. She's been dealing with so much trauma, it's time for her to at least have some fun with the ideas and fantasies going on in her head about being a Pokemon trainer. Once the gang find a way to sneak into the mansion, they end up going up these special stairs leading to a stylized Pokemon battle arena, where Molly, of course, wants to battle. Brock takes her challenge while Ash and Misty break for the stairs as Entei turns Molly, appearance-wise, a bit older in the efforts of seeming like a trainer who is definitely more battle-ready than not. Next stop, the same thing happens where Misty ends up having to face Molly, while Ash continues on some more, and during these battle distractions, Ash is able to find his mom, as they then try and speak with the real Molly and explain that Ash's mom isn't her mom, and they need to leave to get her to safety from these unknown. But she snaps and yells at them, where the power of the unknown spike around her as if they are feeding on her emotions. Entei threatens Ash to leave, but during his refusal, they break out into a battle resulting in Ash being launched out of the mansion high up as he begins to freefall. But that is until Ash's Charizard swoops in from out of nowhere and catches him as they now start to take on Entei. And glad Charizard was watching all the news as well, or else he wouldn't know to be here. The battle starts getting more intense. Ash and Entei have tossed back and forth logic about their perspectives until Entei gets the upper hand and is ready to take out Charizard. But Molly tells Entei to stop, as she has a breakthrough in knowing what's real and how her grieving is hurting others inadvertently. As Ash tries to take on the unknown, Entei has cherished his time with Molly, and now offering to help get her out of here as he explains that he's just the figment of her imagination, and his limits go as far as her beliefs. She'll always have Entei, and just like her dad, he'll always be in her heart. Everything has begun to revert back to normal now. Spencer is okay, and back with Molly along with her mom, and Charizard heads back to train some more. A solid happy ending that pays off a fun, yet brief, appearance from Charizard, with this moment being so cool to experience in the theaters. In the anime, Ash ends up leaving Charizard to train. It's a big emotional moment in the anime series that means a lot to Ash and Charizard's relationship, and man, it's so cool to see that Charizard didn't hesitate to swoop in, help out Ash, show off how strong he is currently, before piecing back out to go train further. This movie is awesome. The conversations that Ash has back and forth with Entei are really interesting. The power that the Unown feed on to create a visually beautiful setting is really cool, all with a smaller and more personal story that has an interesting enough conclusion that wraps up the first Pokemon trilogy in such a unique way. There's just so much to love and enjoy here. The Pokemon battles were fun, Entei was really awesome, and the inclusion of Ash's mother being a central point to the plot made it feel so much more personal because of that. Ash here is a lot more serious, definitely selfish about wanting his mom, but like, you know, I get that. And through his growth along with Charizard's, it becomes a fanfare of fulfilled moments with a showcase of Ash's determination and his relationship to Brock and Misty, who want to come along on this mansion heist and end up battling different versions of Molly so Ash could proceed on his search and rescue mission for his mom. And if you bought the home video release, you got the Black Star promo Unknown J card, and oh, I remember getting the VHS in my hands at a Walmart telling my mother, I need this. That Unknown J is just for me. My name's Jordan. This was meant for me. I have to have it. But do you know what this movie could have been? Well, Takeshi Shudo, who was the chief writer of the original series, had a very different plan. He's also the writer of the first movie and the Mewtwo special that I'll speak about in a moment, as well as he even helped create Lugia in general when the second movie was being made. His plans for the third movie, the original script he wrote for it, was just absolutely wild. It involved exploring the reason the world has Pokemon, what happened to real animals, and a bunch of existential questions, all sparked by the finding of a regular Tyrannosaurus Rex fossil, as it would then be brought back to life and go on this dino rampage throughout the regions. Clearly, the Pokemon powers that be didn't really like this idea, and the film would eventually become the movie we know it as today. Takeshi was an incredible talent and really helped bring some fun and interesting concepts to Pokemon when working on the franchise, being crucial to things like the iconic Team Rocket motto, as well as creating Lugia like I mentioned. He sadly passed away on October 29th, 2010, so I just wanted to say thanks for creating something my mom and I have bonded over for the majority of my life with the creation of Lugia. Okay, so technically this one isn't a movie per se, but growing up I viewed it as one because why would the cover of the VHS say an all-new Johto movie adventure if it wasn't a new movie? I mean, it does technically come before the next movie that does have a 4 in the title of it, which means it can't really be the next movie. But whatever, believe what you want, I don't really care. It's a movie and it's a TV special, how about that? Mewtwo returns. Yes, you heard that right. The movie that contains this infamous scene.
I'll use my trusty frying pan as a drying pan.
Ah, a true classic. Not being considered a full movie, but rather a special that takes place right here in the Johto region, Mewtwo Returns would tie directly back into the first Pokemon movie, making this somewhat of a sequel to it. At the end of the story in that movie, Mewtwo, voiced by Dan Green, thanks Yugi, wanted to seek a better place of living for himself and the cloned Pokemon, a safe area that is out of the way from humans, and especially those like Giovanni who took away Mewtwo's free will in the first place. Here on this mountaintop that acts as an impossible to access oasis that Mewtwo and the other clones can live in peace at as he oversees their protection, things have seemingly been pretty great for them. But Giovanni is still on the hunt to get Mewtwo back, locating where he is, and now leading his full force in that direction. Ash, Misty, and Brock happen to be near the area and checking out the beautiful landscapes along their path before getting stuck in a nearby lodge when the weather gets extremely bad, as we see how Mewtwo not only protects the clone Pokemon, but saves a whole bus full of people trapped in the storm and are in danger. Mewtwo discusses why he does this, whether it be from compassion for every living being, or to somehow make sure the clones are always protected. Not sure the real reason of these two options for why he did so, but mentioning that there is no way he could feel compassion for humans. Our group teams up with Luna, a Pokemon habitat researcher, and someone who spends their time helping tourists in the area. Two others show up as well, a famous researcher named Cullen, who is accompanied by a girl named Domino, as Team Rocket interrupts them and ends up taking Pikachu, but their hot air balloon gets swept up in some of the bad wind that's going on, as the others follow them up, scaling the mountain and being hooked onto their balloon, bringing them all the way to the top of the plateau. But while floating about, Domino then pulls out some binoculars and scans Mewtwo for Giovanni, as she is really working for Team Rocket. Team Rocket's assault begins heading in towards Mewtwo, as Domino strands the Team Rocket trio and our heroes. Clone Pikachu talks to Pikachu as if he knows him, but Pikachu has no memory of this. If you remember, all of their memories were wiped from meeting Mewtwo the first time. Mewtwo shows up to defuse the situation as James says what everyone else is thinking.
This is like the sequel to a movie I missed.
The clone Pokemon and Mewtwo help Team Rocket understand their plight. Pikachu is with Team Rocket and the clones as Ash and the others look for them. Mewtwo prepares on what to do as Giovanni and the Team Rocket brigade come flying in, struggling to figure out what balance is more important for his care of the clone Pokemon, their safety or their freedom. Giovanni starts catching all of the clone Pokemon as Mewtwo has a face-to-face with him now, and decides that they have a right to choose where and how they live, not having to live in fear and hide. Mewtwo gives himself up to help keep the others safe, but engages in a battle of will to not let Giovanni warp his mind with his devices. Mewtwo seems to recognize Ash without mentioning what had happened before, as he then uses all of his strength to break the machine, but in doing so is now completely weakened from it. So all of the trainers and every Pokemon in the area end up holding off Giovanni, as Ash helps bring Mewtwo to the Purity Spring Water, telling him that Mewtwo is one of a kind and is of course worth helping, and then he just chucks him into the water. Mewtwo emerges with a sense of belonging, ready to fight back against Giovanni, shooting out a powerful beam into the sky that's covering the area. And in the end, when the light fades, Mewtwo is gone and so is the spring, but really they are all just inside of the mountain. Ash and friends, as well as our main Team Rocket trio, are there too, and they all convince Mewtwo to allow them to remember what happened here, and keep safe the area for all of the Pokemon that live there, as Mewtwo and the clones leave the area, with all of the bad guys having their memory wiped, and Mewtwo speaking to Ash through time and space, saying that he'll always remember Ash. I just love Mewtwo's poetic way of speaking, feeling so philosophical as he ponders the meaning of his existence and place in this world. Honestly, this movie, or special, whatever, is just fantastic. We get to build a nice conversation about belonging as well as some preservation of nature, mixed in with some really cool visuals to make it overall just a fun time and a worthy epilogue to the first movie if you want to view it that way. Plus, Mewtwo must have filled Ash in on some stuff that happened the last time they met, based on Ash saying that now they can remember this time, implying that there was another time where they still don't remember. So Ash may have learned that he freaking died or turned to stone or something, however you want to classify it. But I don't know, it's just an interesting, not a regular Pokemon movie that I like to include as one. And I'm interested to see where you'd rank it against all of the other films. Speaking of rankings, tomorrow for all channel members here, there will be a special segment of me officially ranking all of the Pokemon movies on a tier list. So make sure to check that video out if you are a member or become a member to go and then check it out. Also, if you think that I missed covering anything that may seem like a TV movie or a special or something along those lines, then check out any of these videos here in the Pokemon playlist. There's a 99.9% chance that it's already covered in one of those. Do I smell onions again? Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. It's just Celebi. What's going on here? What's happening? What's going on with this little bounce? It is time to speak about a fantastic entry into the Pokemon film series and the reason the GS Ball was rendered useless in the anime. Pokemon Forever, Celebi, the voice of the forest. And don't worry, there were Black Star promo cards here too. Celebi for the theatrical release and Suicune for the home video release. Here we start in the past, 40 years before where we would be at in the show's history, where a kid named Sam is walking in the woods and gets some bread from a woman there, offering him a warning of some powerful Pokemon looming in the woods, where he eventually runs into a Celebi, who is on the run from this Pokemon poacher, as Celebi cries out, bringing itself into the future 40 years along with Sam. Where now in the future we get to see that same poacher has now aged greatly, as well as get to meet this even more evil dude, aka the Iron Masked Marauder, aka an elite Team Rocket member, aka a direct parallel to the GS Ball story in the manga in many ways, aka Dan Green. Thanks, Yugi. Ash and the gang happen to be in the area where they end up seeing Suicune Suicune again, as Ash already saw Suicune in the anime, but Ash acts as if he's seeing him for the first time right now. They end up finding Sam, who is passed out, as this older lady recognizes him, as she was the young lady in the past who gave him the bread. Sam seems kind of phased, but like not too worried, more concerned about making sure Celebi is okay rather than whatever family he may have had back 40 years ago. But hey, it's whatever. They find Celebi, but it's fighting back as it is scared, but soon it understands that Ash and Sam are friendly and gives into their help. Jesse and James get thrown in the mix of things because of course they do. But then this guy shows up with his overpowered Pokemon thanks to his Dark Balls that allow any Pokemon caught to instantly become their highest level and seem way more menacing. We get to see a Pokeball from 40 years ago, which is cool, as well as funny, since we have this ancient ball nowadays that seems a lot more efficient, but who could have known at this point? The other Pokemon of the forest seem extra protective over Celebi, helping guide them all to a lake for it to be baptized in, I mean bathed in, as Celebi begins soaking in the energy from the Lake of Life. Or the Lake of Radiation, because Celebi's glowing! Sam eventually has a thought of his mom probably being worried sick about him, which, you know, about time, right? Ash, Sam, Pikachu, and Celebi watch the sunrise together, but their nice times end up turning into a battle against the Marauder, who ends up capturing Celebi in a Dark Ball. The forest Pokemon are shown to start getting upset as Ash tries to rescue Celebi from this ball. But when it's released, it's literally a zombified version of its former self, being extremely powerful now, and beginning to turn into this giant CGI natural disaster that will destroy everything in sight. But Suicune is here, baby, running down some 3D rocks and is going to do something about this. The Marauder gets way too power hungry with claiming to have the most powerful Pokemon in the world. You know, the whole Giovanni should be bowing to him instead, and that he can take over the world with this type of power. And we all know that these type of speeches tend to happen before this person will literally get defeated, which is exactly what happens when Suicune saves Ash, Sam, and Pikachu, so we can now fight back against the destruction of the forest as they work to get through to Celebi and snap them out of this trance that they're in, finally severing the bond as they literally rip Celebi free from its mental hold inside of this giant beast, helping it remember who it really is, flying Ash and Sam out to safety before being extremely drained, turning into a dried up little onion. Suicune repurifies the Lake of Life from the damage done as Celebi is placed back in the waters and brought back to life, but it seems like nothing is working. Everyone, along with the Pokemon of the forest, are brought to tears. But then a beam of light comes from the sky, revealing a ton of Celebi all coming here throughout time and angelically bringing Celebi into the sky, restoring it back to full health, and now the health of the forest is safe and protected once more in a joyous moment. That is, until the Marauder comes from nowhere and grabs Celebi and takes off to the skies, but Ash holds on and shocks him right back out of the sky with Pikachu, as they are now both flown around by Celebi safely back to the ground. Celebi takes Sam back to the past as they say their goodbyes, with the movie coming to a close, and gosh darn it, why are these Pokemon movies so dang good? Another absolute classic with a great story, awesome characters, some great impactful messages about the environment, and when you think it couldn't get any better or have any deeper meaning, we learn that Sam from the past was Professor Oak the whole time, his full name being Samuel Oak. So the professor has always had this connection to Ash, even from when he was a kid, and it's a secret that he's kept private to himself? What the actual heck is going on here? Now, while this is clearly a story partially meant for the GS Ball storyline, I do like how it was used here, and if this is the consolation prize of not having the other GS Ball story in the anime fully play out like it was intended, then I guess I'm fine with that. If you want to learn more about the real story of what the GS Ball was all about, the original plans for it in the anime, what was going on in the manga, and what happened to it all in the end, make sure to check out my complete guide to Ash's journey video, where I do deep dive that way further for you. Finally, we have reached a point in the Pokemon movies where one of the Pokemon in it falls madly in love with Ash. Here we have Pokemon heroes Latios and Latias. And while the movie still takes place with our original trio and during the Johto region adventures, I really see it as a fresh new start to the Pokemon movie franchise, mainly because the English movie numbering title theme is gone. But what doesn't change is that you get some Black Star promo cards of the title Pokemon with the home video release. With our trio in a place called Altomar and in a water racing contest through the canal streets that are similar to Venice, we see these invisible silhouettes of new Pokemon we've never seen before. Ash ends up having his Totodile pulled by one of the silhouettes and forced out of the race, where Misty ends up winning, which is nice to see. Good for you. The water is your turf. Ash isn't mad though, as it was just a fun little competition. We then hear about the Guardians of Altomar, Latios and Latias, Pokemon that don't come around until Generation 3, but get a fun movie before then anyway. Ash meets a mysterious non-verbal girl who captures his attention, but these new Team Rocket members know of the disguises the Guardians pull off, becoming these girls. Where this girl is really Latias, and Ash doesn't know this, thinking that she is just being attacked here, so he steps in to rescue her, but at some point in their escape, she disappears, much to Ash's confusion. We learn about the DMA, the defense mechanism of Altomar, which ties into what the Team Rocket members Annie and Oakley are here for in the first place. Ash spots the girl again and chases after her as she leads him to a fake wall that they can run through, and on the other side we are in a secret garden paradise, where she is alone swinging before Ash is attacked by Latios, and then before another girl who looks the same and can speak confronts Ash, as we learn that this other girl is secretly Latias the whole time, surprising Ash as this was the Pokemon in disguise and that she has taken a liking to him, and wanting to spend time playing as we are shown their sight sharing, seeing the bond these two guardian Pokemon have. We learn that there was a father Latios, who was there originally who eventually passed on, leaving these two as orphaned sibling Pokemon, and that this special item of theirs called the Soul Dew contains Latios' soul and has the power to destroy the whole city, which with how important this item is, has these two Team Rocket members after it. When in battle with the Rockets, Latios jumps in to protect Latias as he ends up getting captured so that she can escape free. The pair then place Latios in the DMA along with the Soul Dew and get inside and start using the controls, as they then resurrect an Aerodactyl and Kabutops that are sent out to go and hunt for the Latias that is with the rest of our trio. But to make sure no one escapes or gets in the way, they use the machine to lock down the city. Misty and Brock send in their Pokemon to help out in the meantime, as Ash is dealing with a bit more trouble here. One of the Team Rocket members, Oakley, starts getting mad with power, thinking she could control the entire world with the machine, as Annie is concerned at her motives now. The machine starts going haywire, Ash just shocks the heck out of Annie, who is just for some reason standing there and taking it, but now to save Latias helps lock the machine and pull him out as brother and sister are united again. Annie gets Oakley to just try and leave, but then she touches the blackened Soul Dew and gets hurt as a result of that. So that begs the question, Annie, are you Oakley? Alright, I understand why some of you may hate me with a burning passion. Now, to save the city from a massive tsunami caused by the malfunctions, the two Guardians calm and ease the water back into the drained city, saving everyone who lives there at the expense of Latios' life, becoming the new Soul Dew in replacement of their father, as through sight sharing we get an existential look at the afterlife, heading away from this earth until fading into nothingness. Okay, Pokemon, can you chill with making me feel some type of way? Not every film needs to have some level of existentialism. Now that the town is saved and the trio are getting ready to head out, Ash gets a kiss from Bianca. Or was it Latias? Guess we will find out one day, but hey, we get to see this beautiful drawing as well as see more Latios and Latias flying in the air as more cycles of their lineage continue to protect the area. Heroes is a fan favorite by many Pokemon fans, and it's easy to see why. It just makes you feel emotions, it sets a story in a fun location, and it makes you experience death. And what more could you ask for in a Pokemon movie where someone or some Pokemon's gotta die? And oh boy, is this one another tearjerker at moments. Heroes is simply fantastic. It's really cool to see how much this guardian Pokemon likes and trusts Ash, from just enjoying their day together to full-on saving the day. The relationships between Pokemon and humans are always shown to be so important and meaningful at the end of it all, but maybe a bit too meaningful here, because Latias needs to pull things back a little bit. We're getting into Chikorita vibes here. If you know, you know. Now we have entered into the era of films where Ash's companions have changed since the start of his original journey. Ah, yes, Jirachi Wishmaker, a fun movie full of fun Pokemon of the legendary, mythical, and just downright powerful variety. Our group here, which is now Ash, Brock, May, and Max, end up at the location of a festival to celebrate the once-in-a-thousand-year comet, the Millennium Comet. And wow, hey, you know, that name truly does fit, but it also has no affiliation with Yu-Gi-Oh! During the festival itself, they end up catching a performance of this magician fella named Butler, who shows off this bundle of space crystals or something that holds the mythical Pokemon Jirachi that will only hatch out and be around for the time that the comet is in the sky. So like a week, a solid week or so. The plot starts getting real juicy once it does hatch, and boom, Jirachi is here and starts taking a liking to Max, building up this strong attachment between the two of them. But nefarious things happen in the middle of nowhere, as this Butler magician man has evil plans to use this Jirachi for, and it's like my mother always said, there's two types of people you can't trust: politicians and magicians. Sorry, David Blaine, I'm terrified of you. Chris Angel, not so much. Butler is actually a misguided, talented scientist that was kicked out of Team Magma when he couldn't help them with their goal of bringing back the legendary Pokemon Groudon for their plan, so now he wants to use Jirachi to do so, to prove that he could do it, not stopping to think if he should do it. But he's a bit more complex than the average movie villain, aside from Mewtwo, as there is good in him and he is extremely talented and even shown to be caring when it comes to his partner here, Diane. So that's nice to see, but he's still being being bad, so that doesn't excuse any of it. Over the course of the 7 days, we see how close Max and Jirachi get, as well as we get to see Absol, who is known as the disaster Pokemon. Because guess what? Disaster's about to happen. But when it comes down to the final day and the power Jirachi absorbs is spiking, opening up his Millennium Eye, again, no affiliation with Yu-Gi-Oh here, Butler uses this as a chance to bring forth Groudon. But the problem with this whole operation is that the Groudon he summons, well, it isn't really Groudon, but instead this tentacle-having, gelatinous, glowing glob shaped in the style of one that goes by Meta Groudon. And with this becoming a giant threat for everyone now, Butler only wants to reverse course on his actions once Diane is put in direct danger from this, but in the end, Jirachi is too powerful for this, whatever this is, and explodes it, as Max has to deal with the grief of saying goodbye to his new friend, as now, for the next 1,000 years, Jirachi returns to his crystal-like form and sunk back down into the earth as Max is heartbroken, whispering his final sentiments. Butler seems to have a new focus in his life and is clearly regretful for his actions. Should probably still go to jail though. But Max gets one final telepathic message from Jirachi, comforting Max after his goodbye. I think what helps make this movie work in comparison to the past handful of movies is that Ash is not on center stage. Like, yeah, he's here and he's important, but this really is a movie focusing on Max and his relationship to the mythical or legendary Pokemon of the week this time. It's something narratively different and something we see in his character of how he cares for Pokemon extended later on in the show itself. Ash instead really gets this mentor role for Max, offering some true words of wisdom to help him along in the movie. In fact, he even opens up about how much he misses Misty at one point. It's truly wholesome and shows that as a person and as a trainer, he has grown. He's also the main guy who does the Pokemon fighting and stuff, so leave the action up to him while Max brings us the deeper emotions in the overall main narrative. I wouldn't say it's the most action-packed, danger-filled, over-the-top movie in the series, but it did add to all of the Jirachi hype out there around this time in general, so it gets points for celebrating that alone. Also, this movie probably has one of the best jokes in the show's or movie's history. It's time to get a little bit extraterrestrial up in here. The next film brought to us is Destiny Deoxys. And if you thought it was fun dealing with a comet in the last movie, well, get ready for a full-on alien invasion. At this point on their adventures, the gang find themselves in the city of La Rousse, a high-tech area that surely feels a lot different than that of many other places they have been before. It even has a battle tower here, but not the battle tower you're thinking of, as that's something they eventually deal with within the anime. Things start kicking off here as they end up meeting a kid named Tori who ends up, well, being afraid of Pokemon. And to be fair, we do have a good reason for this, because prior to the events of this movie by about 4 years, we see a younger Tori who's in the Arctic with a professor when this meteorite crashes down, releasing Deoxys into the world, and with all the horrors that this kid saw right at this moment, it scarred him for life. So now, in the present day, Deoxys comes to the area to cause havoc, taking out the power in the city, which is a city that is completely automated, so that's not good, as well as abducting Pokemon and people, and yeah, this is horrible. We have to stop this thing at all costs and get some sort of power going on in the city here. I think the most interesting aspect here, though, is the lack of power also affecting the Pokeballs. However, a weird way we want to explain the logic behind that, but it just means that whatever Pokemon that are already out are the only options they have out for anything right now, with the rest of our group's Pokemon still sealed inside of their Pokeballs. So, geez, that's a pretty dark fate to imagine them never having power again, and all of the Pokemon that are just in the Pokeballs, they just can't come out. I don't know, something to think about. The conflict directly with this space alien that we call a Pokemon for some reason is that we at first don't really know anything about it or what it wants, what it's after, none of that. Well, it turns out that the kidnapping of people and Pokemon was just for the fact of having a better shot at viewing where underground another Deoxys is, where now there are two Deoxyses, as we get a showcase of their different shape-shifting forms for attack, speed, or defense. But after that, once he finds his friend, what now? Well, action, of course. So an angry Rayquaza, who feels disturbed by their presence, comes to fight the Deoxys as this intense battle can accidentally hurt the city around it. But the only point of this battle seems to be a Pokemon having a territorial moment rather than a deeper or more built-up reason for these Pokemon to be battling in the first place. He's just like, hey man, this is my turf, and get out. All of this having some incredibly fun animation, but it does have these more standout moments of substituted out 2D for 3D models of the two Pokemon that is too jarring not to mention, especially with how good the 2D stuff looked. Where this movie truly begins to differ from the other Pokemon movies is that it takes its time with the storytelling, giving you a pace that builds up through its runtime, sinking in this feeling of being anxious as this alien creature can appear and cause problems at any minute, all with the extra threat of another terrifying beast hanging out high above the earth. It secures you in as the viewer early on by giving you some incredible action through the battle tower, with Ash getting in on the excitement as well, naturally. Plus there are just a slew of extra characters with a bunch of cool Pokemon that are all there because of the battle tower. They add some nice dynamics to the movie and even some comedic relief, so they were all a welcomed addition. Tori also provides a very interesting character through his fear of Pokemon that he carries. He actively is caring of Pokemon just as long as he's not in direct contact with them. But this gets challenged throughout the film, with Plusle and Minun being these cute electric little guys that just want to have fun and be around him, and he's just struggling with all that. But overall, it's just nice to see how Tori grows throughout the film and makes some real friends in the long run. Deoxys is a Pokemon that really fascinates me. The movie only makes me have more questions for a lot of what's going on, but in terms of how it holds up for character, there isn't too much to get from our main cast. Tori, yeah, truly does have a great arc here, but Ash and the rest of them, even the other kids there, are just kind of there, with not too much purpose that their characters specifically had to do over another. It still, in the end, is a pretty fun time with some cool Pokemon and a nice pace to keep you watching, but it starts losing the charm towards the giant battle and lack of standout things for the characters to do. But much like our heroes at the end of the movie, it's time to move on to our next adventure. Now it's time to jump into some of the lore about Pokemon Warfare. Oh man, Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. I watched this movie so many times when it came out because this blue fella right here, Lucario, was a brand new Pokemon that would be coming in the 4th generation. As we would also get teased for this movie by seeing the return of Mew, there's some sort of Pokemon war, we see our characters in some cool costumes, and overall, it just seems like there's a whole lot going on. Now, while I may not love a Renaissance theming for many other things, here in Pokemon, it's simply pleasant. It just works, so yeah, let's go with it. We join our group here heading towards this palace that is celebrating this hero of legend for the kingdom, Sir Aaron, who is something known as an Aura Guardian. Insert random comment and or joke about aura farming here. There was also a Hero of the Year tournament that of course has Ash's name written all over it to participate. You know he can't pass up a little competition. Once there, Ash, in cosplay, in outfit similar to Sir Aaron, he is able to wield an old magical staff owned by Sir Aaron that summons to life a Lucario from back then. Shocking to everyone, but Lucario may have more insight into who Sir Aaron truly was all along, and oh boy, Mew is here too. Now it's a party. Everyone's having a great time. Meowth, he may be turning up a little too much. Gotta lay off the catnip there, bud. You don't want Officer Jenny catching you. Anyway, this Mew here, aside from being playful, is also a thief, or a kidnapper, or is it pokenapped? Whatever. Mew takes Pikachu and Meowth away for some reason, and Ash and company, now assisted by Lucario, head to the Tree of Beginning to track them down and get them back. While this whole rescue mission has some importance to the characters, story-wise, it's just something that pushes us towards the next big moment. What is the reasoning for all of this? Why would Mew do such a thing? Well, it's not as ridiculously exciting as it may seem. This rescue quest does bring us some intense roadblocks to battle, mainly the Reggies, and we ain't talking Fizame, but we are talking the gibberish smack talk that the Reggies are known for, making all their fun noises and blowing things up. A side thing going on here is this other character, Kid Summers, who is researching the mystery of Mew. Oh, now the name of the movie makes sense. I get it. And while the mystery is cool for the most part, I wouldn't say it would blow your socks off, but rather mildly breeze past them. Might make your toes a little cold. As Mew really just needs some help at the end of the day, the mystery is the equivalent of a friend needing help moving. It's like a favor. But hey, as long as we get another Ash is dead so Pikachu is sad but he's not really dead scene, then it's all worth it. I love crying for 2 minutes at the same thing I've already cried to. You can't traumatize me again, right? But the big stuff that really makes this movie is getting to the final bit of information that completes everything with Lucario, and what missing moments from his past he can't recall or thinks happened. Lucario in general is truly a force to be reckoned with, as Pokemon knew what type of bait they were laying out. And I'm not talking just the furry variety, as he's a moody, living, on-the-edge blue anthropomorphic dog that can shoot out aura beams from his hands. No wonder they got the voice of Goku for this role. It just makes sense. He's a standout Pokemon from his power and ability to communicate, but just in general, a really cool addition to the story to bridge the truth of the past to the reality of the future. He's more than just a Pokemon here to help out or be in the main story, not just because he's a Pokemon, but instead because he's a character, a fleshed out, fully realized character that has some repressed issues and story beats that take us back to the past to learn about Sir Aaron and what was happening back then, as well as helping understand and unlock something in Ash that he didn't know he had in him the whole time. Or, I knew my boy was a farmer. But yeah, okay, you know what? With everything that Ash has been through and done, I believe it. Full on superhero, honestly. And with how the story has been told throughout the movie, with both visions visions of the past and in the modern day of the film. It just feels so much more interesting as we try and figure out and piece together why Lucario comes back in the present with negative feelings towards Sir Aaron, especially after hearing so much good about this guy and celebrating who he was. These tension-filled moments lead to Ash and Lucario getting into arguments and then eventually into a full-on fist fight as they wrestle one another for a moment, and you almost forget that he is just literally in physical combat with a Pokemon himself. But trust me, getting to the answers Lucario needed to understand to get the full picture is incredible. The way he is able to get his closure and even give us, the viewers, an emotional end to his story is fantastic, with Ash doing what he can to help him do so, ending their time together with mutual respect. Plus, just hearing about and seeing some glimpses of a Pokemon war is pretty intense, as we get to see these opposing armies, men standing between countless Pokemon decked out in either red or green armor, as they prepare to and eventually begin violently clashing. While these references to the war and the clips from it are a takeaway moment as a viewer, they are very brief and not the main focus. This is another film for Pokemon that I hold pretty high up there, as it just is that good. The story is engaging, the conflicts are suspenseful, and the adventure, dare I say, is adventurous. I ended up really becoming a fan of Lucario because of this film, and no, not in the same way that some people on the internet are. That's not even mine.
Who's that Pokémon? It's Vaporeon!
Now we get to talk about the best little blue Pokemon to ever exist. Why does this kind of look like a Chow from Sonic? Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. Man, do I love me some Pokemon Ranger video games, so you bet I'm excited for anything involving the Pokemon Rangers in Pokemon media. Plus, Manaphy. And if you know Ball, the first Ranger game was the catalyst of my love for Manaphy, as you could receive a mysterious egg from that game, transfer it to Pokemon Diamond or Pearl, and then hatch a Manaphy and live your best life. And then adding the fact of having this movie, I mean, come on, it's a double whammy for my interest in this little blue fella. Once again, Gen 4 is leaking into the third generation through these movies, but that's okay. I'll take Manaphy early, thank you. Ash and the crew, for some reason, hitch a ride with a traveling circus, and along with them is this Pokemon Ranger named Jack Walker, the fakest main character name I've ever heard, as he gets everyone tangled up in a giant mess as he is involved in some back and forth shenanigans with an evil pirate named the Phantom. Wow, now that's spooky. This whole issue is over this weird looking egg, but as you can tell, it's not your average everyday egg, it's translucent and only 35 calories. But this is the egg of the prince, a mythical sea egg that turns into, yeah, well, I've already told you, Manaphy, woohoo! And May is the one who holds Manaphy as it hatches, as now it feels an instant comfort with her. And yes, it's another movie like Jirachi Wishmaker, where the main big Pokemon focuses on a character that isn't Ash, which is just good to do every once in a while. Change it up, give the other characters a turn. And also, like how that movie has a focus on Groudon for a moment, this movie has a focus on Kyogre. I like when there's a nice balance. Now for the story, it's really a video game escort mission to help Manaphy get to this ancient sea temple and out of the hands of the Phantom. It honestly has the vibe of action-adventure, but more so in the realm of go here, do this, watch out for these guys, discover something ancient and secret, and then run away from things type of feeling, if you catch my drift. There's a treasure on the line with this hidden temple that clearly the Phantom is after, so there is this important pacing to the film that keeps you going and keeps delivering with constant moments of clashing to help with your investment of it all, as our main characters here aren't really the main focus, but more so this vessel to help tell this background story that they're just, slightly tangled in. I like it. Jack's story as a ranger is awesome. He's the cheesiest hero around and a hoot to watch. May and Max get this whole side thing revealing their technical relationship to the people of the water, as well as the focus here on May giving her these breathtaking underwater moments and a huge importance in looking over Manaphy. Now, back when this came out, there was a lot of speculation that this feels kinda awkward, since this feels like it should have been written for Misty. So a lot of people may fight for that and call out May for not deserving all this water-based attention, but I just take it at face value of what the movie on its own is offering me. Ash kind of steals the role of playing hero in the end instead of doing something more meaningful, but it was in an effort to be like the Rangers, as he then goes supersonic and does a bunch of this, and hey, sure, that's cool, pop off. Oh, hey look, everyone's going supersonic. This is truly one of the shots of animation of all time. Speaking of animation, the animation here is just gorgeous. From the movement under the water to just the sheer amount of undersea Pokemon swimming around. It feels lived in and real, with a lot of love and effort poured into the visuals to deliver a pretty special experience. It tugs at your heartstrings at the end, and it's super sweet and it's extremely beautiful. Sure, was this just a movie to sell you on the Pokemon Ranger games some more? Yeah, probably, but does that mean they made something that isn't good and is solely a cash grab just to do that? No, not at all. In fact, this should sell you on the game, if anything. While we focus on May mainly for the lead here, more so than Ash, it's also also really a movie about Jack the Pokemon Ranger, as well as the descendants of the Water People. While in the end it isn't my favorite Pokemon movie, I do think it is an incredibly fun Pokemon movie that brings such a pleasant watery vibe with incredible visuals, a fun charming adventure, and my favorite little blue bean. Now we're getting to the movies that are actually a part of the 4th generation. The first movie of the Sinnoh era, The Rise of Darkrai, brings our group to Alamos Town, as wouldn't you know it, things are happening, and we are now going to get involved with them, specifically the distortion of reality. How fun. The Pokemon and the people in the area haven't been able to sleep all that well thanks to an unusual amount of nightmares they're all having, and no, it's not because they had too much sugar before bed. You'll notice right off the bat that this movie is a lot more horror-centric than anything we've seen in the Pokemon movie space thus far, building up this looming and mysterious threat of Darkrai, whose presence and entrances leave you a little more than uncomfortable. If you need to watch this one with the lights on, I understand, and I won't tell anyone, trust me. Oh, sorry, I lied. But you're trending now. I mean, if you also add in the phantom Pokemon stuff that's happening along with the way that you can't escape the town, the movie gives you some pretty dreary vibes, especially since we also have to deal with both Dialga and Palkia, who are duking it out between dimensions with it affecting this one as well. Regardless of the Dialga, Palkia, and even multiple Darkrai related things that happen in the regular show past this, our group aids in all of this as a special 100-plus-year-old song is what is needed to be played to calm the fighting and hopefully help save the day. The secret to that song is built up through this added-in character's great-grandfather's past, building the city's odd but elegant landmark, as well as the song being related to what this character's grandmother taught her. After some time hanging out in the city and understanding the truth about Darkrai, it genuinely is cool to see this random city get pulled into this pocket of empty space, in its own dimension being the battlefield for the space and time titans to clash in the skies, or space above. How are they even able to breathe up there? Who knows?
How come whenever we're in outer space, we don't gotta wear helmets?
The answer is quite interesting.
Really?
Through this battle ensuing and understanding it in general, the city becomes the place that is directly in danger as a result of what's going on. So Darkrai does his best to distract Dialga and Palkia and even full-on fight them, but as the longer this goes on, the city starts slowly disappearing. In the end, Darkrai pulls an Ash movie classic move and dies. But it was all for the greater good, and look, he comes back anyway, just like Ash always does. But here, this was thanks to some mystical space darkness resurrection, and that was pretty cool of him to do. I can't do that. What I like about this movie here is that it did try to fall into a more horror-filled setting, with the themes and visuals allowing for a few moments that truly do leave you sitting there, a little over-focused on what's going on. It never goes too far into any of these interesting factors though, sadly, leaving the rest of the film to feel less exciting because of it. It spends time building up these side characters that are all out in the middle of what's going on, as they also have this love triangle that only matters for the moment we are introduced, so I feel that that was going to be something a bit stronger and maybe more fleshed out in the original script, because if not, it's kind of just there for no reason whatsoever. But despite that, I like what these other characters ended up offering. And this other dude here just gets turned into a licky for the whole movie, and talks with mannerisms and movements that make it a pretty fun little gag. Darkrai also gets treated as the villain in the movie for a while, as he would most likely be to blame for all the nightmares and other issues going on, but as we later find out, he's not this bad, mean-spirited, or evil Pokemon. He actually is just misunderstood and alone. It's just thanks to his creepy factor of him just being himself that he gets attacked by the locals, and in turn, he defends himself. Or then, because of his powers, nightmares get distributed out. But by the end, of course, he is shown as this hero thanks to what his true nature actually is, as we ease into seeing him for more than what the people are scared of him by. It's a decent introduction to the Sinnoh era of movies that gives us some high stakes, with Ash mainly just being there to assist on things and react with everyone else until needed, but here, and specifically in the main battle, it feels like he, or any of the other friends for that matter, weren't truly able to aid in anything for the most of it. So yeah, there's some good here, and there's some meh here. But I like the overall ideas that this film brought to Pokemon, and I think leaning more into the horror sometimes is pretty cool for Pokemon. Like in their promo shorts for Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, where we would watch Pokemon kill some people to show off the deadliness of those creatures. Man, I would just love a fully horror-themed Pokemon movie. I feel like the possibilities are truly endless. Hey man, all that dimensional stuff in the last movie, yeah, that was pretty cool and all. But where the heck is my devil Giratina at? Ah, here he is, Giratina and the Sky Warrior, a direct-ish sequel to the previous film that picks things up where they left off, bringing in the lore of 2 more Pokemon. From what happened in the last film, the reverse world is this alternate dimension created thanks to the battle of Dialga and Palkia, with Giratina now residing in it, causing issues with this dark dimension beast, whether it's in its origin form or not, as it's being forced in there by Dialga when they tried making making an escape from it. The other Pokemon that we get to focus on is the Sky Warrior himself, Shaman, a mythical Pokemon that can either look like this cute little bit of shrubbery or some sort of fusion of a My Little Pony and a Paw Patrol dog, and he may be the only key to freeing the beast, while a person named Zero works on his goal of entering into this reverse world to go after Giratina and drain its power for himself. And where does Ash and his friends fit into any of this? Well, they're just kind of there, again, which, works with the majority of the plots for Pokemon films to keep it as little consequential as possible, all for the sake of the show's continuity. We know and see this hard plight that's going on for Giratina here in the film, as it heavily contrasts with Shaman's journey, which is just him wanting to be placed in a flower garden. It's two extreme extremes: an incredible dark and edgier looking monster wanting to leave what essentially is an otherworldly prison, and a cute little thing that is stupidly adorable and wants to be around some flowers. Both are terrifying. But inside every Shaman is two beasts fighting to get out. Where Shaman in regular form is pretty obnoxious and sarcastic, the Sky form brings out the over-the-top hero is here attitude that you can also find annoying. He's just lucky he's cute. The reverse world is a unique setting as it twists and distorts captured anomalies, and thanks to Dialga and Palkia's fight, things sure got busy in there, but the scientist traveling with Ash and company named Newton who studies this stuff helps fill in the missing gaps, especially the reason why Palkia and Dialga were fighting in the first place in the last movie, which was a misunderstanding of their territories being threatened by one another. Zero used to study under Newton, and eventually he became too obsessed over the fact of a dimension that he can rule, and so far a lot of this just sounds too similar, as it feels like a mix between other characters in the proper show, with how their stories play out, and how the video games themselves handle similar moments as well. It just doesn't feel fresh. It's like when you reheat some leftovers, sure, it still somewhat tastes like it did when you were eating it fresh, but you just know it's not as good as it could have been, making you think about the fresh version more than what you're currently eating. I know someone in the comments is already typing, "Oh my gosh, of course the fat guy is talking about food." And to that I say, yeah, you're right. But while the film spends time developing Giratina as this perceived bad guy and overall antagonist of the movie, Zero is the one who is trying to capture him for his energy, which would kill the beast. So he's the real bad guy. We do reach a point where Giratina gets cared for and brought back to health thanks to Shaman, as the beast is finally not being portrayed as the most evil thing in the room. Zero has this whole second layer to his new dimension world order that would eliminate the real world to protect himself and his new dimension. Look, he has an interesting plan and some cool ways of doing things that are comparable to past iconic villains before him, but he loses his own identity because of it. Rather than standing out more so to be unique, he's just pulling from a lot of greatest hits. And that's really the problem with the film overall, since it's a follow-up film to the last one and is a mix of all these other ideas rather than something brand new. Of course, things end well with Giratina free and now off to look for Dialga, I'm sure just to talk in a friendly way. And as for Shaman, well, he just gets to live this magical fairy-esque little hero that could life, and it's all thanks to the power of certain flowers in this flower garden, and not any help from our group here. And regardless if there was or not, which there was, regular form Shaman would claim otherwise. He did it all himself. For the time being, the world is safe from these dimensional problems, at least for now. For this entry, I thought it was cool to build upon the last, bring in the results of what happened last time, where Giratina now has to deal with the consequences of a messed up world to live in, and be punished to stay there thanks to a time loop that only Shaman can somehow fix thanks to its abilities. It's a decent enough setup to build off the back of the other film and naturally introduce something so demonic and otherworldly to the series. I also want to note that I am a huge fan of this film visually, as the distorted world looks incredibly unique, adding in a style like no other parts of Pokemon have had yet, even when some other trippy moments have happened in the past. You feel the scope of the world or dimension we get to be in, with this larger-than-life Pokemon dispute to deal with and be a part of, as gravity has its own rules in different areas in what feels like a world that never stays the same, morphing to adjust and form new fantastical-looking creations. The fact that they deal with reactions happening between the worlds gives us a cause and effect feel where the outside world does feel threatened by this dimension, overall adding some dire stakes to everything. But it'd be kind of funny if there was a third part to all of this, huh? Hi, do you have a minute to talk about Pokegod? Okay, so you know how the last movie was a sequel to the movie before it? Well, what if there was a part 3? And Pokemon sneakily enough made a secret trilogy here, as we now get to take a look at the next Pokemon movie, Arceus and the Jewel of Life. A film that would bring the creation Pokemon to life in front of our eyes, and more importantly, Ash and company's eyes, regardless of what they'll ever claim to remember or not. Also, yes, Arceus is officially pronounced Arceus. I do think Arceus rolls off the tongue better, but Arceus makes sense in relation to what this Pokemon is and what it can do. So if you you have a problem, take it up with Papa Pokemon, okay? Now, for this movie, it's a pretty big jump in the crazy stuff that happens, and parts 1 and 2 to this trilogy were already quite a lot to handle. But here, Ash and friends find themselves in the middle of everything, once again, who could have guessed, as we get to look into the Pokemon that created everything. The god figure in Pokemon himself, Arceus, who trusted mankind once to replenish the world when in dire need, but is then tricked by the humans, leaving the Jewel of Life unreturned, so now a rage-filled Arceus threatens revenge on them and their world for this betrayal, leaving more of its creations in the form of Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina to be the ones to calm the all-powerful being down, or to try and take him down if they have to. So the logical thing to happen does, and the gang gets sent back in time to fix whatever happened in the past to stop the god in modern day. The film is literally Ash, his friends, and these other powerful Pokemon all trying to take on God, and that's kinda crazy. Now let's not get all time travel technical here, and ignore if that's plausible because we just have to take it how it is. Let's not look into any other ripple effects that it could have. First off, yes, Giratina did fly off to battle Dialga for trapping him in that other dimension, but their feud comes to a halt once there are other pressing matters. Oh no, Dad's here! We have to stop fighting! Oh, good point. Hey, you know what? Let's go fight him instead. Alright, I'm in. These other characters, Sheena and Kevin, are in the mix, as Sheena has some cool magical Pokemon spirit connecting powers as we build up to Arceus' return after 1,000 years of slumber, ready to strike through the pain of being deceived. The main battle between the 4 Pokemon is on an epic scale that is really flashy, but mainly a lot of these big beams filled with surrounding gust flying back and forth. But when they focus on the stuff that takes place in the past once they travel back, it genuinely scratched a curiosity itch regarding the way Pokemon were looked at back then, as we see them not being treated well, as these Pokemon essentially were servants to mankind, being used for full-on strength in some ways, but mainly there to just serve the humans for whatever they need. It's a harsh time with a lot of morality to explore. It wasn't this bonding relationship that we see the humans have with Pokemon in the modern day, although they still are made to battle, but that's a different discussion, you know? Modern day Pokemon politics. There are some fun gimmicks of being in the past to play with, like things going a certain way resulting in the disappearance of others fading in and out of reality, and it's a great time for everyone, unless you're one of the ones who is fading away. But the other aspect that makes the time traveling fun are the options of either taking out Arceus in the past, making sure that the jewel is returned or never borrowed in the first place, among several other options. But aside from that, there is this truth about the history, with the person who was claimed to have wronged Arceus named Damos not really being the one at fault, as he planned to give the jewel back to the god Pokemon, but this other person named Marcus manipulated the situation. And that's why you never trust a man named Marcus. I mean, come on, this guy here, he's totally the bad guy, right? He just looks like one. Anyway, it brings us down the rabbit hole of exploration and trying to understand what God is to man and what their relationship can be, having the references to what essentially is sin, and therefore the relationship was, from that day, broken, but eventually could be healed and patched, which are some pretty intense, thought-provoking concepts to explore. Did I notice this kind of stuff when watching this as a kid? No, not at all. So I am sure many just see this as a fun movie with the Pokemon space gods or whatever, but viewing it now, I think the parallels and connections here are pretty cool. A talking, all-powerful god that man has to reconcile with, as this evil character who wears red to let you know that they're the bad guy and they're evil, ends up getting killed in a pretty painful and awful way, but that's what you get for tempting man against God, knowing good and well that until time travel got in the mix and others would come back to figure things out, that it wouldn't be something you'd have to deal with, but the people 1,000 years from then would. Again, let's not get too technical here. We don't need to bring up time loops, or if this was then solved, why would it still happen type of thing. I do admire that Pokemon went forward with a separate narrative away from the show, with this trilogy, continuing another story over here that isn't affecting the show, and the show, I guess, kind of not affecting the movies back. But regardless, the trilogy altogether is alright. I think that there are some really cool moments in each release, and I also do feel that each movie works on its own as a complete story, so you can look at them that way, but it is kind of cool to have the three run narratively into each other. I really think the concept of a god Pokemon that is responsible for the creation of creation and every tier of creator underneath it, to then every living being underneath that, is really cool. Arceus itself is a really cool Pokemon from a design and ability perspective, but also a cool one to explore from a personality perspective as well, giving us a version of who Arceus can be and what he can do. And that's how Ash and the gang almost killed God. Or something. Welcome to Pokemon. Things are fun here.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Caterpie! Huh?
Hey look, it's me, Fallout Boy. Just kidding guys, it's me, Jordan Fringe. That was called acting, and some say to act is to be a master of illusion. Okay, no one's ever said that. But anyway, here's the next Pokemon movie. Now it's time to get to some new Generation 5 Pokemon for us to see outside of the proper generation of introduction. This is Zoroark, Master of Illusions, and it brings in our group as they all head towards Crown City. But along the way, we meet a new Pokemon named Zora, who needs help since their mother, Zoroark, was captured by this Grings Kodai fella. The plan here is simple, as if this guy can use Zoroark's illusion abilities correctly, he can stir up some issues or panic around the town because Grings is a businessman with the power to see the future. So we just have to accept random super abilities like this more and more often in the universe of Pokemon, but he actually gets it from a moment of reaching into a time ripple left by Celebi, infusing him with the energy inside and giving him these powers, using it to then become this influential businessman that is insanely wealthy and essentially controls the media narrative out there, all of this following the That's So Raven-esque vision he had about the future. But now he sees another vision that he must try to make become a reality thanks to the powers fading, with him needing to get access to another time ripple. Zoroark becomes a pawn in all of this thanks to the illusion abilities it has, but this Zoroark was taken away from the Zora, and so now they need to reunite the two Pokemon and make sure to solve the issue of the city for the sake of the city. And this place has a past of gloomy days, with no life fully blooming there aside from the sad citizens, but in modern day, things are going great. There's an incredible balance between people and nature, and oh look, Celebi's here for some reason. I'm sure things are okay. And yeah, it's cool seeing Celebi again. And really just having Celebi visit the town in this time period now is basically just the reflection of how far the city has come. Oh yeah, I totally forgot that Celebi's time ripple is what the main villain is after. So, There's definitely a bunch of themes going on here in the movie with a character like Grings, as it focuses on the stuff he does, like the control over what is put to broadcast or the narrative spin on the stories being whispered out there, as well as the accumulation of his wealth over the sake of life blooming here. And all of that brings in these random side character journalists that are already looking into this man and his shady business practices. I feel complete in the fact that we finally have Raikou here in a movie, seeing as how we've already had the other legendary beasts make their appearances. But hey look, the rest of them are here as well, and they're shiny? Okay, go off. But this is all possible thanks to the new generation bait Pokemon Zoroark, which seems like another attempt to capture lightning in a bottle like Lucario did for the fanbase, but there may be another Pokemon eventually coming that may just do that even more so. But I think to a high enough extent that Zoroark gets some love and has some cool powers that make for a fun enough movie for the fans. Zora, on the other hand, is a whole lot to deal with in the meantime together with the group, serving up some almost untrustworthy-esque dialogue because of its nature and how it constantly laughs to itself. It's a little unsettling sometimes. We also see it turning into the human characters, and I just feel bad for Ditto that this guy is stealing his flow and doing it on different levels. But the attitude and the way it speaks is just a mask that it uses, much like how the illusion can show the Pokemon, as any other Pokemon it chooses, to hide the insecurities of truly being this tough little Pokemon who at the end of the day just wants his mother back. And I like that the mother and child relationship is one of found family, as this Zora is not a child to the Zoroark that they call mother. It's a small detail that is mentioned that was a unique angle to take their relationship in, as them not being biologically related didn't change their bond for caring for one another, as they just wanted to be back together. The way they try to connect the full plot doesn't make as much sense in some ways when having the bad guy become the reason the town originally lost all the luscious life it had, becoming this future-seeing man with a plan to get everything to where it is today, but needed to get a special illusion-based Pokemon for the sake of causing terror to empty a town so he can do the whole searching thing for his time ripple. Honestly, the bad guy here does a bunch of evil stuff to truly make you not like him, and nearly gets away with everything as he reaches into the time ripple from Celebi to confess to the bad things that he's done, and laughs at the fact that the trees, grass, and all that has grown are to be nothing but dead. But this was all an illusion for the journalist to capture it on tape and expose the truth, giving us a climactic ending that felt like there were stakes and delivering on a small twist that makes the resolution more believable. But overall, there wasn't too much going on here in the film, as it really just ends as this nice reminder of where we are going to be going soon after this movie. And with the Pokemon franchise in general, with the tease of Ash going to the next area, the Unova region, not long after this. What's better than one movie? Two movies. What's not better than two movies? Two movies that are really just the same movie. For the first movie in the black and white era, we did have something rather unique here, as the film was released as two separate movies, kind of. There is the black version and the white version of the film. Pokemon Black, Victini and Reshiram, and Pokemon White, Victini and Zekrom. But both films are essentially the same. You wouldn't have too much of a different experience if you watched one over the other. I will go into some of these differences in a moment, but as far as the story goes, Ash and friends make their way to a new town, one that is set around a castle called the Sword of Veil, for obvious reasons of looking like a sword in the stone, technically. And through a competition drawing in Ash to participate, like usual, we get to meet another mythical cute little Pokemon, this time being Victini. The exposition of the lore for the film is pretty cool, having this fairy tale-like feel to it all that takes up a large portion of the film to set up a mirroring finale. But there is a reason that the story feels a bit padded with that, along with a lot of the time being spent on just hanging out with Victini doing cute things, and that's so that the changes between the films are easier to kind of slot in and out. Although I will give it credit because they did more than just swap out the cover legendaries here. The lore tells us about a king and Victini who watched over the whole kingdom and the people that lived there, having the power of what they called the Dragon Force. And no, we're not talking Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock here, even if we all wish we were, with this force coming to the earth to help keep the kingdom and its citizens well taken care of. The king, though, had two sons who were twins that had the power to control one of each of the legendary dragon Pokemon, with one son controlling Reshiram, being the hero of truth, and the other controlling Zekrom, being the hero of ideals. While the main show deals with parts of the lore in a similar way, the encounters in this movie don't affect the story to come later that happens in the show that we haven't reached yet. The two sons begin to go to war with their beliefs, having the power of each Pokemon fight for them, but the battle results in the dragon's energy being drained and they transform into orbs that represent them, called Dragon Stones. From this, the kingdom was thrown into disarray, having the Dragon Force changed into a destructive force that is harming the land. The king, worried for his kingdom, has Victini offer his powers to control this power, creating the Pillars of Protection, using the floating Sword of Veil with all of the citizens inside to move it to a mountaintop, staking it into the ground where the king's no longer moving castle resides as the king then passes away. Both sons vow to hide the Dragon Stones in the depths of the castle for the safety of not letting this ever happen again. And spoiler alert, there wouldn't be a movie if it wasn't about to happen again. In modern times, we meet a character named Damon, whose lineage comes from the people of the Veil, as he has a goal of resurrecting the kingdom lost to time. His plan involves seeking out one of the dragons, mixed with the forced help of Victini to do so, placing the current day town and everyone who lives in it at risk if all of this happens. Ash, being the hero he is, would need to combat Damien with the help of the opposite dragon to help save the day, facing off against Damien as the castle ascends high into the sky. Now, with the dragons at peace after the battle, the true nature of destruction is shown from high above, having Damon face the consequences of his actions, even if he felt that what he was doing was just. Damon and Ash are left trapped by the Pillars of Protection, as Damon is granted the power of the dragons to help fix everything. With the castle now being high up in the atmosphere, Ash is struggling to survive, especially from the cold temperatures while the dragons try to destroy the pillars, but nothing is really happening. We get another moment where, uh-oh, is Ash gonna die again? But we all know he won't, and now through the power of Victini, it uses all of its strength to break the pillars holding this destructive dragon force, shooting it into space for some other planet to eventually deal with, I guess, as the castle now comes back down to Earth. Damon helps warm Ash back up so he can be okay, but Victini seemingly sacrificed their life in order to stop the threat. The dragons now help land the castle back down, and in the end, Ash is sad and sorry that Victini gave their life to save everyone, but you know, it's okay. Victini appears back once more and is no longer trapped by the pillars. Damon is sorry for all that he had caused, as his intentions were initially good and for his people, as he now then commits to helping rebuild everything with Victini there to help as well. But as far as our heroes, they continue moving along on their regular journey. A sprout is then shown to be growing where the kingdom used to be, showing that life, finds a way. Now, I think the movie itself is pretty fun, a nice and pretty wide scope segue from the main adventures Ash and company were on that ends in a satisfying enough way. Like I said though, there are differences between the movies, like depending on the version you watch, you'll have a different prologue that flips with a flashback, seeing both moments fully fleshed out in either film with full-on new scenes, offering what feels like an alternate cut of the film, which, you know, I guess one of them really has to be, right? Like one had to be the main one, where the other becomes changed to still fit the same story structure, just with, you know, the changes. Either way, along with that, yeah, the dragons are flipped for who Ash ends up teaming with, either going in with the power of ideals or the courage of truth as the perspective taken. But this means the battles are done differently as well for this part of the movie, having different scenes that still end in the same results. But even so, some scenes are completely animated from a different perspective, even if it's the same dialogue or technically just the same scene from the other movie, which is nice to see an extra level of effort for something like this that could have easily just been kept the same and cut around to fit these other changes. There are different Pokemon in each version of the film as well, giving us the feeling of the video games having version-exclusive Pokemon. We see Damon using different Pokemon in each version of the movie as well, and heck, in the black version of the movie, the Golurk we see is shiny, and then for the white version, we get a shiny Hydreigon. So again, that's really cool to see in general. I love seeing shiny Pokemon in the show and in the movies, and I like how they gave both versions their own shiny to find in the movie. Watching both films just feels like I am watching a film released in two separate realities, so for the experience, while fun, can really line up to being kind of a waste of time because it's really just, it's the same movie, it's the same ending, it's the same everything, just small tweaks between them. So honestly, just pick whatever dragon legendary you like the most between the two that you want to see Ash team up with and enjoy it from there. That's my takeaway from it all. Who wants to talk about some My Little Keldeo? Here we have another story that features what would have been a cover legendary Pokemon if they made a gray version of the game, with that being Kyurem, who's here along with the mythical Pokemon Keldeo, as well as we also have the legendary trio known as the Swords of Justice. All of that stuffed into the film Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice. Ash and friends seemingly get involved by just existing, as they wind up spotting an injured Pokemon while they're riding a train, when suddenly they are attacked by Kyurem, who is heading on a rampage for now, wanting to finish an agreed upon battle. Ash and friends are able to escape from the train and find themselves tending to the injured Pokemon, to which they discover is Keldeo. The reason Keldeo is in this weakened state that they're in is thanks to Kyurem. Earlier, Keldeo truly wanted to be a part of the Swords of Justice, which consists of the three legendary Pokemon, Terrakion, Cobalion, and Virizion, who have the duty of protecting Pokemon and humans alike all over the Pokemon world. Through Keldeo's training and overeagerness, Keldeo wants to take on Kyurem, to which the Swords discuss this and feel Keldeo isn't ready for that just yet. So Keldeo then makes way to where Kyurem is anyway and challenges the beast, but Keldeo was no match, and as a result of the other swords swooping in once Keldeo's horn gets broken off, we get to see the real power of Kyurem, who can draw in energy from Reshiram and Zekrom to transform into what seems like a fusion of either legendary dragon and itself, using this power to then freeze the Swords of Justice and Ice as a scared and weakened Keldeo flees the area, leaving the initial battle unfinished and Kyurem angry, leading to why it broke out into the open world, where we catch back up to where everyone was on the whole train. Iris is able to fill in the gaps about Kyurem with her knowledge of the legends from the Village of Dragons as they go to get help for Keldeo. We also hear about how the swords came to find Keldeo and helped raise it as one of their own to hopefully have Keldeo one day join them as an official Sword of Justice member. So now this sets us on a path of our heroes spending time with Keldeo, as Keldeo needs to find the courage within to continue their face-off with Kyurem, defeat the beast, and save the Swords of Justice. This is a very small story. Our heroes are barely at the focus here, as this is a personal journey of Keldeo, making it feel like an extended in length episode where the group just does stuff, I guess, but Keldeo surprisingly becomes a strong lead to follow for the film, seeing what this Pokemon has to go through to grow, what losing their horn means, and becoming the strong protector that the Swords of Justice were training Keldeo to be. Ash and friends just join in for the ride and help in ways like distracting and encouragement, as this is Keldeo's fight and their responsibility to handle to be considered ready for the heavy responsibilities it means to be a member of the Swords of Justice. I mean, there is some bad guy fodder to deal with thanks to some Cryogonal, so there is that for the group to deal with here and there, but it's like nothing really. The swords themselves operate as this trio that can summon light swords from their heads, which is pretty cool, while Keldeo has to learn that his horn, the one that, broke off, isn't where the strength resides to be considered their sword. It's something deep within. True friendship. Yeah, a little on the nose there, pun intended, and I'm not sorry, but Keldeo has to understand what makes being a Sword of Justice special, and that's the fact that it's not for you, it's for them. It's for those who you protect, and for those you work with to do the protecting. A completely selfless line of thinking to be able to truly summon that strength from inside. Once Keldeo faces off against Kyurem one-on-one once more, then Keldeo is able to fully summon that inner strength and take to heart what the others have been teaching them the whole time, being able to have a completely unique sword all their own as Keldeo's new form, known as its Resolute form, comes out, giving Keldeo, as well as the audience, a movie that opens up and closes to both metaphorical and physical transformation, going through a forced change to one that has to be understood and reflected upon. Then, and only then, is Keldeo ready to give Kyurem a more confident and calculated fight. But another part of the lessons that Keldeo finally understands to be like the swords is not one of simply winning the battle, but doing what is necessary to be a protector, losing the battle against Kyurem to save everyone else from being hurt. But in now yielding to save the others, Kyurem shows respect respect and backs off calmly to move on from this now that the battle he was challenged to is complete. Regardless of what was learned from the journey, as that literally becomes the whole point, Keldeo just gets their horn back. And it just would have been interesting to see Keldeo having to continue on, not in Resolute form, having this battle scar that reflects the growth and learning it went through, but it's a Pokemon movie, so a happy ending for all as Keldeo goes on to continue with the Swords of Justice, while Ash moves on to, you know, whatever happens next in the anime. Like I said, it really feels like a random extended episode, but for what this story is, it's enjoyable. There's some good and wholesome lessons and values, and I can never just look at Keldeo without noticing those giant bushy eyebrows. Looking like the Eugene Levy of Pokemon out here, my goodness. Are y'all caught up on the Chainsaw Man manga? Why do I say that? Oh, no reason. Anyways, lots of bugs. How do we deal with that? Our next movie to dive into is Genesect and the Legend Awakened, which will be a nice little look into the next generation of Pokemon for both the games and the anime when it comes to changing a Pokemon's form temporarily. In fact, we get to see that change right away as we have Mewtwo here. No, not the one and only Mewtwo from the original film and then sequel special, but a different, all-new Mewtwo that is out there in the world now, meaning that there are two Mewtwo's, to which this one shows off that it can use some energy to heighten its power levels by changing its form from just Mewtwo to Mega Mewtwo Y. Why? Well, we'll find out. Or not, because, you know, you and I already both know about Mega Evolution, okay? But like, you know, come on, like play along for the sake of the video and pretend like we're back in 2013 and all this Mega Evolution stuff is like brand new. Mewtwo ends up finding and rescuing a bunch of brand new Pokemon known as Genesect, as some of them are purple, but one of them is red, which technically means it's a shiny Pokemon. And based on what I'm about to say after all of this, does it technically count as a shiny Pokemon? Because these are man-made Pokemon, kind of. Mewtwo gets into the mind of one of the Genesects to see that originally, they were this 300 million year old Pokemon discovered in modern day as fossils that Team Plasma brought back to life and turned into these metal insects that managed to escape their captors. We see that the Genesect are searching for their home, but the red Genesect thinks that Mewtwo is a threat to them and tries to fight it, but Mewtwo explains that their home is no longer there after all these years of being extinct. Mad overhearing this, the Genesect fly away together, as they notice a city that they feel reminds them of their home and head to it, as this is where Ash and friends are as they're about to intersect into the Genesect storyline. The city they're in is New Torque City, you know, very creative name there. Our group makes their way into the nature park of the city, where Ash runs into a very timid Genesect after startling it, as they end up calming down right when the red Genesect shows up thinking that Ash was a threat, with Mewtwo then showing up to save them from the attack before the Genesect leave. Mewtwo gets to speak with Ash and friends in regards to what the Genesect are and how they came to be, as Mewtwo feels for them, having a similar origin story to how Mewtwo was brought into this world. The Genesect find a place to feel at home for the most part, taking over an area of the park and scaring away all the local Pokemon from there, showing off their power by taking on a Feraligatr and being the victor. This Mewtwo has a moment to reflect back on its origins, but they seem to be fairly familiar, but like, I swear, this is like a different Mewtwo, but maybe just it was like a different attempt in the same vein as how the original Mewtwo was created. But essentially the movie turns into this battle for territory as Mewtwo ends up having to face off against the main red Genesect, with Mewtwo using the Mega Y form for their battle, while Ash spends time with the Genesect that doesn't want violence, as they do what they can. But this really turns more into a film following the red Genesect and Mewtwo more so than whatever Ash and friends are doing. Mewtwo would rather get through to Genesect rather than continue any pointless fighting, grabbing the red Genesect and flying straight up into space, trying to push itself further in its power limits as they freeze up and Mewtwo blacks out while pushing that far above Earth. When Mewtwo wakes back up as they are both floating above the Earth, the red Genesect stares back at the Earth and all of its beauty. Mewtwo finally gets the chance to calmly speak about that this is their home and they both come from here and they are here for a reason. They are alive now for a reason. Red Genesect finally starts listening to what Mewtwo is actually saying. They aren't searching for a home, they have a home, and that people can be friends, despite the bad humans that are out there. People and Pokemon are friends, not enemies. Upon taking Mewtwo's hand and heading home, Mewtwo has pushed too far and is gassed out, falling unconscious as they fall back to Earth. The red Genesect grabs Mewtwo's hand and uses the last of its power to reach out to the other Genesect, as they all fly in to help along with Ash's Charizard and Iris's Dragonite, with the Genesect crafting together a net to catch them. But it doesn't work as Iris has some Pokemon help create a padding of water for them to land on, as they end up safe because of that. Mewtwo helps the red Genesect out of the water as they approach the others, with the red Genesect saying that everyone is a friend, which sure, let's go with that. It's a lot easier to deal with that than rather teaching them fully about not everyone being your friend. But for now, yeah, everything's good. Everyone's a friend. We get to find a new area where the Genesect can truly call home and live happily and in peace, starting their newly resurrected life with Mewtwo being thankful for Ash's help and happy that they met as they hope to meet Mewtwo again one day, as Mewtwo takes off in their Mega Y evolution form, and now Ash has helped multiple Mewtwo's. And hey, we may get some more info one day that there's more than one Mewtwo in the future. Maybe I'm just playing coy and I don't know anything, or I know everything. But there truly is one thing I do know, and that's right now, this is the end of this movie. There are some cool ideas in this film, like having a Pokemon created to be born having to face off against and help show the way of understanding the current world to a resurrected ancient Pokemon that was also infused and manipulated by scientists for the purpose of being used by man as a weapon. While the overall conclusion or understanding for the Genesect may not have been as deeply thought-provoking or offering up the viewer something beyond surface level to take away, the story did one thing for me, and that was to feel multiple emotions through the Genesect. Whether it was the Genesect that spends the movie just wanting to go home to a time that no longer exists and is friendly but mainly timid, or from the shiny Genesect that learns that people and Pokemon are friends to them. Not everyone is some evil organization scientists wanting to use them for personal gain. We also get to see what Mega Evolving is, getting the chance to see it through this new Mewtwo who can take the form of its Mega Y variant. So my question is, who was the legend awakened? Was it any of the Genesect? Was it Mewtwo? Was it you for watching this video, you bloody legend? I don't know, but it's something to think about, and I think I will think about it.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Furfrou!
Yeah, well, I think I figured it out. The answer is you. And as a reward, let's talk about the next movie. We are now in the X and Y era of films, aka the last generation of Pokemon movies before they would end up rebooting them into their own new timeline. The first X and Y film, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. It puts our main characters into a situation having to deal with the mythical Pokemon Diancie, along with the two main legendaries from this generation, Xerneas and Yveltal. Here in the film, there is a whole society of Carbink that live within an area called the Diamond Domain, which in my headcanon is a Jujutsu Kaisen reference, even though it literally can't be. Along with their ruler, a Diancie who isn't powerful enough to have the diamond creating powers needed to help keep alive and healthy the heart diamond that in turn keeps their home alive. In terms of Pokemon just being Pokemon, the Carbink society seemed to be a lot more advanced in many ways, as we see the Carbink having different names for themselves, being able to speak and just operate differently from the more animal-like ways of living that the majority of wild Pokemon do. Diancie's story here leads her to needing the help of Xerneas to grant the power needed for her to be able to help the heart diamond. Along this journey, Diancie ends up meeting with Ash and friends, getting a bit distracted from her own story here, and gets to experience a life outside of the society that she's in, and all of the freedoms that come with this. After being distracted with Ash and everyone, she returns back to the Diamond Domain to find out that the Heart Diamond has died, sparking the others to help Diancie to do what they can to find Xerneas, while some nefarious characters want to capture Diancie and use her powers for their own personal gain. Through this, that Cocoon of Destruction in the title comes into play as it houses Yveltal, who gets disturbed by all that is going on, sending the Y legendary Pokemon into a rage, using its powerful attacks to turn humans and Pokemon into stone. Please, enough turning characters into stone! Are you trying to give me PTSD? Come on! Eventually, the only way to defend from Yveltal is Diancie finding the strength to Mega Evolve, being able to create a heart diamond that turns into a shield from Yveltal's attacks. Yes, the film has more death scares for our main characters and Pokemon like usual, thanks for that movie, but Xerneas ends up coming around to save the day, restoring those that are technically dead, and ends up also being able to calm Yveltal from its rage, and hey, everything's alright. While the film has some fun and interesting Pokemon involved in the mix here, the balance of Yveltal's representation of death and Xerneas' representation of life just kind of leaves off on a note of what you're getting here at face value. The whole deeper tone that the movie was looking to explore comes off more surface level, that acts as a pass to just give us an extra problem that's too out of hand, that another Pokemon and their force has to come in and solve it. Sure, Diancie gets to experience a new way of life, as well as finding the strength to Mega Evolve, but that's really all there is to the story. Ash and friends are just involved in the more recent capacities of sidelined assistance, as some solutions to save the day are completely out of their control, and they're just as much viewers of what's happening as we are at moments. Okay, this one ends up getting pretty crazy when it comes to all of the massive legendary Pokemon duking it out. Ew, that's nasty. Stop, I said duking it out as in fighting. Grow up. Our next film in the franchise is Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, and you truly better believe that it is. If you're looking for some crazy battles, a bunch of legendary Pokemon cameos, and the entrance of another mythical Pokemon, then yeah, this film has all of that just for you. Hoopa's backstory has its portal rings appear in this desert village one day as it begins stealing food from the people of the town, causing them to get upset until Hoopa begins to conjure up unlimited riches in return, helping build up the village into a wealthy and thriving place for the citizens to live now. To show off the power that this Pokemon has, it uses the portals to summon more powerful Pokemon to take on as it becomes thirsty for becoming even more powerful than it already is, getting into a problem when it starts summoning legendary Pokemon, causing the battles to become way more destructive, resulting in the village itself getting caught in the crossfire, giving concern to the citizens as one of them stands against this unbound power, sealing the unlimited strength from Hoopa in a bottle infused with the power of Arceus to trap it away from Hoopa, now putting Hoopa in its confined form, but still able to have its portal rings that have the power to summon both Pokemon and people. Even after 100 years of trying to help Hoopa understand the world around it, there is still a want for power that Hoopa believes it deserves to have, forming this quiet restraint for the time that it's lived in this village. And now, as all these years go on since all that happened, Ash and friends eventually enter the picture now, as well as another character who has grown up with Hoopa and believes that the mythical Pokemon is ready and responsible to have that type of power let out of the bottle again. The power locked away though forces itself out when finding the opportunity, immediately causing destruction, making Hoopa transform into its unbound power form again, as the humans quickly scramble to use Arceus' power with the bottle once more. Team Rocket, however, does their thing, and through this, the bottle ends up breaking. But Hoopa resists the evil powers, leading to the powers themselves then forming a Shadow Hoopa all its own, with our heroes needing to craft a new bottle to contain this evil as an all-out battle of legendary Pokemon commences. Hoopa and our main characters are able to bring forth their own team of legendary Pokemon to fight the Shadow Hoopa and its team of legendary Pokemon. I mean, it was like having Pokemon Civil War before Marvel would have that in Captain America 3. It's kind of awesome to see it visually play out. Hoopa here has this internal struggle in realizing that the power it can have is too overpowering, easily corrupting it to uncomfortable levels, but needing to come to terms with the humans that took the power away, understanding why rather than blaming them for stripping it away in the first place, as it becomes a clear story about dealing with your own flaws, and how we view the flaws of others, as well as how on both sides of the coin, when facing these resentments, here metaphorically and physically, bottling them up and ignoring them or directly dealing with them to grow from it all. Of course though, it's full of fanfare with the Pokemon used for the battle, with Latios and Latias being summoned, as well as bringing back in Lugia, and there's even a cool shiny Rayquaza, one that is able to Mega Evolve, so that's pretty neat. Shadow Hoopa brings in the Generation 4 legendaries with Palkia, Dialga, and Giratina all together again, not stopping there with both the special primal forms of Groudon and Kyogre, and then there's even Kyurem. Yeah, it's like a giant spectacle of a battle along the likes of you playing with action figures of the most powerful legendary Pokemon you can think of and clashing them together. Oh, I guess that's why they call it Clash of Ages, huh? With everything hitting a resolution with Hoopa having to face its literal feelings and shedding that resentment, and having an appreciation for the people that did this in the first place, as it found the one thing Vin Diesel wants in life, and that's family. Feeling at home with the citizens in this city who for the past 100 years have accepted this Pokemon as their own and treated it like family even after the initial destruction. With the darkness in the unbound Hoopa fading away, and a good and calm-natured unbound Hoopa is in a newly crafted bottle, the disaster isn't over yet, as there's all of these summoned legendary beasts from their specific places in time and space that, you know, need to go back. So a void appears and starts tearing apart the area in response, as Hoopa asks for the powers of its unbound form to be released back to it, as they then directly take over Hoopa again. Only now with Hoopa being able to control this power and use it for good, and having the portals act as a way for the citizens to go through so they can get to safety. But in a divine intervention Deus Ex Machina moment, Arceus descends from the sky above, and is able to fully present to Hoopa the responsibility of unlimited power. And this time they're from the actual god Pokemon and not through powers that make you feel as powerful as a god. Arceus stops the crumbling of space and time before disappearing with all of the legendary Pokemon returning back to their homes. Hoopa is thankful to everyone around and vows to help the city that claims it to be family get put back together and just lives happily. It's a really action-packed movie that features a toy box of powerful Pokemon getting into one giant fight. And if you'd want more parallels to the MCU, all these legendary Pokemon make their grand entrances through these portals. And I'm just starting to think that Kevin Feige and the Russo brothers are just fans of Pokemon and taking down some notes since this movie came out in 2015. And speaking of Marvel, Alright, now it's time to talk about the final movie. No, not in general for Pokemon, just the ones that have continuity with the show. Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel, the final movie in the canon timeline, or the Volcanion timeline. It's fine, I won't quit my day job. But here we get to deal with two very interesting Pokemon, with that being Volcanion and Magearna. From the jump, an airship and Volcanion are at odds, leading to the pilot trying to shoot out handcuff devices to stop Volcanion, but only part of it locks onto the beast, with the other, of course, landing on Ash, dragging him along with Volcanion, forcing the Pokemon and Ash to be linked together for now. Volcanion, though, is not a fan of humans and is now stuck to one. Together, they catch back up to the airship and learn about what the cargo is being transported to the kingdom. And this kingdom uses magical steampunk science, which led to one of the inventions here that is the cargo, the literal mechanical man-made Pokemon marvel, Magearna. The inventor chose to hide Magearna away from the city to stop anyone from using the powers it has for the wrong reasons, and that's where Volcanion ties into things, having met Magearna allowing it to stay in the sanctuary for any mistreated or left behind Pokemon from the hands of humans, again showcasing why Volcanion doesn't have any room in its heart for humans. And eventually an evil scientist then comes to steal Magearna after locating it, and that's how we get to Volcanion chasing after the airship thing that we are currently dealing with, as Magearna is stored as cargo. Ash and Volcanion are able to get Magearna out of captivity for now, and make an escape as we spend time with them all together. The themes of this film end up being more of a retread than anything, looking into the whole similarities and differences of Pokemon, and if their way of life is better together or better being separate from humans. Volcanion's intentions are nothing new for the series. Its ideals are something repeated time and time again, with it having no trust in humans, having its own experiences seeing these Pokemon in the sanctuary being hurt by humans both physically and emotionally. Throughout the movie, Ash gets through to Volcanion that not all humans are bad, with how much good Ash does and being selfless and helping rescue Magearna and fighting with the evil scientist once Magearna is captured again. And with Ash's actions, Volcanion has a change of heart, and it welcomes Ash along with his friends to come to the sanctuary anytime. And maybe, just maybe, Volcanion's heart grew 3 times the size that day, as he will no longer be as hostile and dismissive of every human based on the actions of some. While the movie doesn't add too much new to the stories we've been told before, it does offer some fun action along with reiterating the highlights of the shared world of Pokemon and humans, bringing all the living beings together to happily live and share in the world with each other. There isn't a whole lot new here, as we've reached a point in the Pokemon movies where most things are just retreads of what has come before, just with some slight shifts to somewhat make them new again and fit to introduce some legendary or mythical Pokemon into the mix of things. It's not a bad thing when viewing the movies individually and taking them for what they are solely on their own, but you can very much tell that with the restrictions of continuity to the main anime, along with the anime changing art styles after the 6th generation, they needed to figure out how, if they were to continue making these movies, they were going to navigate things going forward. In 2016, Pokemon was celebrating its 20th anniversary, so it just made sense to try some new things, and if anything was going to change, it was going to be the animation side of Pokemon.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Jaspin!
Sometimes you just need to reset things and see where a new, but familiar, path may lead you. In 2017, we would see the release of the first film in the rebooted canon of Pokemon movies, creating an alternate timeline for Ash's adventures that don't have to follow the same paths seen in the anime or the previous movies. There are no restrictions here. This Ash is not the Ash that we've known for 20 years at this point. Well, at that point, now it's 30 years. So yeah, we're in the Ash multiverse now, and while he's basically the same guy in spirit and attitude for the most part, his adventures end up becoming increasingly different. The release of this film titled I Choose You very perfectly captures the feeling of what they were going for, wanting to create a new starting point for anyone to jump into the fandom, as well as grabbing onto the nostalgia of every kid who had grown up with Pokemon. The words I choose you are very significant to the origins of the Pokemon anime, and if anyone from my generation hears those words, we're gonna get activated like a sleeper agent. Thanks to the title, when they announced this movie, it was very easy to understand that this was some sort of soft reboot, starting us off with Ash at the beginning of his journey, as we'll see him build his connection and unbreakable bond with Pikachu. What you are going to get with this film is essentially a recap of some of the greatest hits and moments from early on in Ash's journey in the Kanto region, seeing newly done versions of the original episode with Ash getting his Pikachu as his partner Pokemon, and many other sentimental moments that are surely going to make you tear up. I didn't need to relive the Charmander or the Butterfree stuff in new ways, man. You didn't need to slap me in the face with more trauma associated with these moments from my childhood. Thank you very much. But there are some major differences that begin to separate this Ash's path from the one that he took in the original anime. Like the fact that Misty isn't here, nor does Brock come in at any point. It's just Ash, Pikachu, and then some other random trainers or people that he ends up running into for a bit while dealing with some greater story going on. Or here, for this movie, a greater threat to be dealing with. That being the newest mythical Pokemon at the time, Marshadow, as it starts making all the Pokemon in the area violent towards Ash and the others, and making them essentially do this Pokemon's bidding. But how can you hate Marshadow? He's so cute. The main setup for the film and where the story for the most part changes is after Ash ends up seeing Ho-Oh, which here is done in this downright gorgeous scene, leaving Ash with a dropped rainbow feather and turning his goals into that of finding and catching Ho-Oh. Or, at least battling it. We get to experience a lot of Ash's struggles with Pikachu in the beginning, and look, Ash could be a huge prick in the original series, but here, he definitely has strong emotions that don't come out in the nicest of ways, but he and Pikachu do end up working through this. It was just a new way to dramatize a lot of the early on stuff we saw in the anime, and the struggles that these two had over there. Albeit, we do get a nightmare sequence of Ash living in a world where Pokemon don't exist, and it's pretty bleak and sad, but thank Arceus it was all a dream. Ash and Pikachu's relationship hits this big peak moment towards the end of the film that really turns into this make or break moment for you as a viewer, for if you'd end up loving the film or not. And yes, I am talking about a specific infamous scene that I will get to in a moment. But before all that, Ash ends up having the feather taken from him by this piece of crap named Cross, who instead of Damien in the original anime, was the one to abandon the Charmander here. And later on in the movie, after he loses to Ash, that same Charmander that has now evolved all the way up into a Charizard, he just tries taking the feather from Ash trying to summon Ho-Oh. But then Marshadow comes in, starts taking everything under his possession, which leads to Ash saving Pikachu from every Pokemon attacking all at once. And yeah, if you thought we were going to make it out of this movie without an Ash death scene, you'd be dead wrong. So as Ash is fading away, Pikachu lays down beside him and here it is. He freaking speaks to Ash. No, not in his own Pikachu Pokemon language. No Pika Pika. It's in full, understandable English, or whatever language you're watching the film in. After Ash asks him why he won't get in his Pokeball, he says, "It's because I want to always be with you," which ends up helping Ash not die. But like, holy crap, right? When I tell you that this was the Pokemon moment heard around the world, it wasn't from Pikachu talking, it was from the reaction to Pikachu talking. Luckily, this film had a limited theatrical release. I happened to see it in theaters, and when that moment happened, multiple people gasped, multiple people yelled expletives from the shock of it all, and then there were people like me who just sat there, mouth agape from it happening. There are several videos online documenting this theater experience for the movie, and like I said, it was make or break. It doesn't matter what you felt about the rest of the movie, because this was the moment that stuck out the most. It really overshadows anything else that happened in the film, or should I say overshadows. Okay, I'll stop, I'm sorry. So you either think it's good or fine and enjoyed the movie for what it was, or this moment completely ruined things for you and you were clocked out completely. Regardless if this was to be interpreted as really happening in the moment or being something that Ash just feels in the moment with Pikachu or whatever the case is, there was just no explaining it to make it make sense enough for everyone to love or care about. I personally don't love the scene in context to the movie and what's going on, but I do love the emotional representation of the scene here to show the "I'm never leaving your side" bond that Ash and Pikachu have. So I feel pretty meh on it overall and how it was executed, but I enjoyed the vibes here, so take that as you will. I like that we get to have some use of Marshadow in the movie. I like seeing Ho-Oh and having Ash getting to have this great experience and battle with Ho-Oh in the end, a battle that we really don't get to see the results of. We just see Ash kind of, fried at the Pokemon Center. It's like he's been a Pokemon trainer for what feels like, like a couple days and thinks he's ready for Ho-Oh. But aside from that, the movie also then just kind of ends closer to the feeling of how an episode of the anime would end, as Ash and the others that he's with all move forward on their own separate journeys. It's not a bad movie. In fact, there is a lot to love here, and also a lot to make you never want to watch it again. Why did they shove like 6 or 7 ridiculous sad moments in here? They're already playing the greatest hits of sadness from the original anime. Did you really have to give me this sad scene and story about a Luxray dying? No, you didn't, and my day is ruined. But at the end of the day, this movie is really pushed by the nostalgia of growing up with Pokemon and being there when it all started in the 90s, and that's okay, because there is more here than just that. As you can tell, this had a level of love and passion put into it. It's not just a cash grab for the sake of nostalgia, it's something that embraces the nostalgia and creates something beyond that. It's not the best Pokemon movie of all time, but it's not close to being the worst either, despite a certain scene dividing the fan base quite a bit. It's kind of weird at first to experience the start of everything for Ash in the Kanto region again with all of these changes, with the most jarring being the way we see so many Pokemon that aren't from this region, but are now just naturally here thanks to other trainers traveling, making the world feel a lot more lived in and realistic. realistic, especially in modern day where all these other generations of Pokemon exist, as compared to when it all started back then. It was just the original line of the Kanto fellas, and Ho-Oh, and Togepi, and then eventually Okay, and alright, I have to stop, the point's been made. Having the world here feel more fleshed out like this is definitely a big perk of getting to start over with everything now, and heck, if they did that again 10 years past this movie we're talking about right now, we'll then have several more generations of Pokemon that have fleshed out the world even further. Now with these newer movies in the reboot era, they wanted to really go all out with them when it comes to the visuals, amping up the quality of animation, the use of lighting and colors, as well as stuff like how nice the character movements look, as it all comes together to just look absolutely incredible and feel like a massive improvement compared to all of the movies that had come before. It's not like the other movies look bad or anything, they still look great and have some standout moments with their visuals, but this film really shines for where the art direction and style is going, really making it stand out further from anything else in the animation space for Pokemon. But also the Sun and Moon anime was doing their own thing that changed the animation style completely as well, so between this movie and the Sun and Moon anime, Pokemon in animated form around this time was looking really different. Since the movie had a limited theatrical release, there was not only a special Ash's Pikachu promo card that you'd receive, but at the same time, you'd be able to collect 6 other versions of this promo card for Ash's Pikachu that all wear Ash's different hats from throughout the generations, where at GameStop, if you spent $25 or more on Pokemon card products, you'd get a pack of 3 out of the 6 different Ash's Pikachus as a special promotion to tie into the release of the movie. It was a pretty cool thing to see, honestly, and like I said, I got the chance to see this film in theaters, and on top of that, at the original movie theater I saw the first Pokemon movie in when I was a kid, so that felt extra special for me. But that was the big reboot for the Pokemon films, a new journey for Ash to take that gives you a lot of what you already know and love, but makes a clear point to change things up, with some things really working and being a lot of fun, while other things, well, it may have missed the mark. And yes, I mean the Pikachu speaking scene. The following year, in 2018, we would see the first sequel in this new continuity of movies. And continuing on what would grab at your nostalgia strings, while also trying to be something new, we would end up with a movie that has some similarities to the second ever Pokemon movie, Pokemon 2000. But here we have The Power of Us, the second movie in the reboot series that continues Ash's journey in this alternate universe. The story has Ash going to Fula City, where the people here love and celebrate Lugia. Hey, sounds like my kind of place. There's a special wind festival that is held every year that celebrates Lugia, where he ends up making an appearance and then generates the gift of wind power to all of them for another year. Our journey here, though, ends up going in a bunch of different directions because the focus on Ash becomes very limited compared to everyone else that we get to meet. The film definitely has one of the larger assembled cast of characters as we meet a whole slew of them in the city, so it feels more like an ensemble cast of characters you've never met before aside from Ash, which is fine for the most part. We get to know all of these characters throughout the course of the movie very well, but I can't help but shake the feeling of missing Ash's companions that we would see and meet throughout his journeys in the main Pokemon timeline. Again though, I am not faulting the movie for that, that's on me and my attachment to the multiple decades worth of side characters that have palled around with Ash. So let's talk about some stuff to highlight about these characters, like Risa, a girl who ended up having to give up on her athletic dreams due to an injury, but she comes into the picture after her brother who's in the hospital wants her to help him catch an Eevee, to which she's no Pokemon trainer and isn't really the best suited to do that on her own, but luckily she ends up getting Ash to help her on this. There is also the mayor's daughter named Margot. And why is this character important? Well, what would this Pokemon movie be without some new legendary or mythical Pokemon inserted in? So yeah, it's not just about Lugia again. We also have the introduction to Zeraora, an even more furry bait Pokemon than Lucario, I'd say. Margot is actually helping take care of this injured Zeraora outside of the city itself, as there is this grander relationship to the city and this Pokemon, but we get to learn that Zeraora is mad at the humans because of how the groundwork was laid for the land here, where Fula City is today, wiping out a large portion of the forest as we see Zeraora aura farming, but also mainly helping a bunch of the Pokemon trapped in these fires. Margot is also helping keep Zeraora hidden from those who are after some crazy rare and powerful Pokemon hidden out in the mountains. She even goes as far as to try and stop the annual festival from happening by stealing this sacred flame, which causes more trouble for the city when the gifted wind from Lugia stops. There's Torin, who is a scientist, but he's very anxious and scared of being in the spotlight or being able to give a presentation, as his story intersects with another character specifically, that being Callahan, who is a con artist living in the city who's just trying to do what he has to do to get by. And he's honestly not like this awful guy, as we see him having this close relationship with his sister and her daughter, with him being a goofball filled with Pokemon knowledge and stories to entertain his niece. These two end up trying to help each other out with their individual things going on, where Torin wants him to do his presentation for him because he can't build himself up to doing that, while Callahan needs some coaching for a contest that's going on, which leads to an accidental outing of him technically cheating. A lot of sad stuff happens, happens, like Callahan and his letdown of himself and to who he wants to be seen as for his niece, ends up just kind of ditching his pseudo-wudo, which is heartbreaking, and I take back what I said. I hate him now. As for Torin, like I said, he's just stuck with all this talent and all of this want to help with his ideas, but through his personal fears, stress, and anxiety, he's holding himself back from becoming the person he, and even others, know that he can be, as some of the other scientists don't believe that. They just think he'll fizzle out and burn because of him holding himself back. Then there's Harriet. She's an old lady who seemingly hates Pokemon, but everything isn't fully like that. It's way deeper and a whole lot sadder. But there is this nice theme of growth throughout the movie that ends up having all of our characters intertwined into the same story. So while the majority of them are only characters that you've met in the same movie, we still get some nice completed story arcs that will make it feel like your time wasn't wasted on focusing on them. I think the focus on the character of Risa through her bonding with Eevee and really getting to be put in these moments of reflection help her overcome her fears of continuing to run after her dreams. Full pun intended. It's just really well done, definitely the most inspiring part of the film that will make you believe in yourself no matter what roadblocks are in your life. The whole thing with Margot and Zeraora really comes to a head during the power plant explosion that threatens the land and the city, as Zeraora blames people for this as Margot helps Zeraora learn that not every human is a bad human. So, you know, the same thing that we've seen before with like Genesect back in his movie, or even Volcanion in his movie, and technically even Mewtwo. I'm sure I could just keep doing this all day, but it's just nice and wholesome as everyone, both people and Pokemon, come together to save the day at this point. When there's a dire situation that's going on that does threaten the lives of everyone in the city, which means Callahan's sister and his niece, he steps up to be this selfless person, becoming this hero-like figure that his niece believes he is from his fabricated stories. And through this, him and Sudowoodo come back together, and that's nice, so like, fine, I don't hate this dude anymore. Plus, Torin is able to overcome a lot of what he's dealing with when helping Callahan figure out how to combat this effect spore that is threatening the city and everyone in it, so everyone's getting a redemption here. As for Harriet, it's not that she dislikes Pokemon, it's that she has the fear of attachment to them based on what happened in her past with her Snubbull, who ended up sacrificing its life to save hers and get her this key to the power plant that she originally built. And we get probably one of the most violent Pokemon deaths in animation as we watch Snubbull get completely engulfed in flames in a frame-perfect handoff of the key that results in this Snubbull full-on dying. But it's okay, he gets his own little Yoda Force Ghost form. And Harriet is finally able to be around other Pokemon as she helps in saving the day by having the key to the power plant and working alongside the others and some Pokemon to do so. Overall, there is this big connective tissue that pulls the story together in the end. Like, it's truly thanks to the growth everyone experienced as they overcome their own personal roadblocks that ended up saving the day, mixing together genuine teamwork and self-accomplishment and what pushes you to understand who you are and what you can accomplish and why you do it. And it really all comes together beautifully to wrap up all of the issues going on. So by the end of the movie, I was caring about all of these characters. I feel like I really got to know each of them and see what they're all about. So when they do accomplish these personal feats that in turn become a part of saving the day, you are really rooting for them and genuinely feeling happy about what they have overcome. Ash, well, yeah, he's not the main focus here, but we're used to that in the movie side of things for him. That's not to say that he's not important or doesn't have a role to play. It's just that the movie really lives up to the title, The Power of Us, which is a nice contrast to Pokemon 2000, which is subtitled The Power of One, even though Ash still had help from his friends, a bunch of Pokemon, and even Team Rocket back then. That movie could also have been called The Power of Us as well. But I think it's cool how it all works in the context of this movie. We all have our own journeys, stuff we need to work through on our own, but just remember that we're all in this together, shout out High School Musical, and together we are always stronger. These connections can ultimately push us as individuals to be inspired, to understand that we are capable of achieving what we want, or even breaking perceived barriers that make us feel held back. That's not even mentioning all of the environmental messaging and discussing the balance of preserving nature, while also allowing society to grow, you know, understanding that balance and harmony. There's just so much to take away from this movie any way you look at it that you can't help but feel really good afterwards. I'm sure it's also not hard to see just how beautiful this movie looks, as it continues the style and vibes that I Chose You had, only now giving it even more life in certain areas with these rich blues and sun-bathed colors. And there's just so many shots from this movie that could be posters all on their own that you could frame nicely and put on your wall. Plus, when it comes to the characters and Pokemon themselves, they feel so lively with their movements and little details that push beyond what any of the other movies or any season of the anime have done. It truly is such a gorgeous film that even if you didn't like anything about it from a story perspective, you'd still say you had a nice time because of how nice and pleasant the film is to look at. It's the most anime-feeling version of the Pokemon anime yet. While there are still some borrowed ideas from previous Pokemon movies, I'd say that overall, The Power of Us has so much good going for it that these other familiar story beats don't end up hurting the film. And just like how Pokemon 2000 is my favorite Pokemon movie, this one might be my favorite of the reboot set of movies. Go figure. All you need to do is put Lugia Lugia on something and boom, I'm sold. Even if he's not really in the movie all that much. He does get his little ending moment to show off how cool and graceful he is, and we love him. Now, before we get to the next film in the reboot series, there is a little detour with the films that we must take. To be fair, this is a video about Pokemon movies. Is Pokemon Detective Pikachu not a Pokemon movie? Right, that's what I thought. Checkmate, Detective Pikachu deniers. No, but for real though, I'm gonna keep this one short. Pokemon Detective Pikachu, the first live-action Pokemon movie to come out, and still so far, the only. As it follows the concept of the Detective Pikachu video game, where there is a talking Pikachu and this kid named Tim, who can understand him, and also this Pikachu is a detective who has a foggy memory of how he became a Pikachu, as he was once a human, as we now have to uncover that mystery and deal with all of the crazy Pokemon shenanigans and dangers that come their way, and oh yeah, Pikachu is voiced by Ryan Reynolds. The good things that I enjoy about this movie are definitely the back and forth conversations that Pikachu and Tim have. They really do have a fun dynamic together, but as far as the whole narrative goes, the whole mystery is pretty simple to figure out even if you know nothing about what's going on. And while the adventure they go on can have some visually stunning and fun over-the-top moments, it really boils down to the characters getting to a location, things get crazy, and then they need to get out of there, avoiding all of the danger as much as possible. Along with Tim and Pikachu is Lucy, and she's an investigative journalist slash reporter, as she ends up a part of the team along with her Psyduck. She doesn't truly add too much to what's going on, but she has good chemistry with Tim and has some good connections to everything. But again, the plot is pretty generic, with the film ending in a way where a sequel wouldn't make sense, but things could surely be done to make it make sense, so maybe one day we will see a sequel, who knows? I think it would be cool to see a live-action Pokemon movie based on something like the Colosseum game from the GameCube, giving us some more complex characters and some interesting settings to play around in. Now, you either love or are terrified by the look of realistic Pokemon, or both, and hey, that's okay. It was the most speculated thing as to what they would officially look like, and yeah, they look about as realistic as they could make Pokemon look. You still have to suspend your disbelief, but you know, I think it could have been even way worse. And honestly, for the vibe of the movie, I like how grungy and ugly a good bit of them are. I am just glad we start out the movie with Cubone. I love him. He's so small and angry. Let me know which live-action Pokemon from the movie was your favorite to see. They really just picked most of the Pokemon to be in the movie based on popularity, as all of the top choices are here and get moments to shine, like Charizard, Greninja, Mewtwo, and a whole bunch more. There's even some crazier appearances like these Torterra, but they are literally the size of mountains. It's pretty ridiculous. Honestly, for me, the most fun part of all this hype was collecting everything and anything that was Detective Pikachu related, as they just released so much merch in celebration of this movie. I used to have it all on display, but I collected the cards, the toys, the fast food toys, the plushies, the 7-Eleven special cups. Heck, I even have the store display standee and the Blu-ray release banner. And don't even question me, you already know that I have the limited edition Pokemon chocolate bars, and they're still sealed. Would you take a bite? All this to say that, yeah, it was a pretty fun moment in time to be a Pokemon fan. And I'd love to hear your memories of this time as well, so let me know in the comments. So you know how they've already rebooted the Pokemon movies and now have this brand new continuity to follow? Well, why don't we pause that for a moment and do something that, well, most people probably didn't ask for. Ah, yes, Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. A movie that is just the first movie, but now animated with 3D animation for the heck of it. So, in that case, here's everything I said about the first movie again. And pause. Perfect. Okay, fine. To be fair, there are some different things in here. Yeah, the 3D look to it all, it's a mixed bag of uncanny and not so bad. Like the Pokemon and the action with them, all of that's great, but the main characters all feel, I don't know, off, I guess? Like sometimes they look fine, but there's just something about translating the characters into 3D that makes you go, yeah, maybe they should have just stayed 2D. Throughout the movie, you'll see small changes like the first guy that Ash battles with the Donphan having a new look, as well as no longer having a Golem and instead sending out a Drowsy. The boat that they get to the island with is now a Lapras, as Team Rocket all have different disguises because of that. And there are plenty of little design changes as well as shot compositions because of the dynamic nature of battles being 3D animated. And to top it all off, there is a post-credit scene here, and it teases the follow-up movie, or special, or whatever, Mewtwo Returns, as we see the plateau that Mewtwo brings all the clone Pokemon to in the Johto region. So that's actually not a terrible addition. I really like that part, actually. It's a fun little nod to where Mewtwo and the clones go. But overall, overall, you're just getting the same movie with a little bit of new polish to it that you didn't really ask for, but can still enjoy for what it is. And hey, if you hate it, at least the original still exists, just as it was in all of its 2D animated glory. Alright, we have made it to the final Pokemon movie, for real this time. One more time and with feeling, or should I say feelings. As here we have Pokemon Secrets of the Jungle, a movie that would right away introduce us to the newest mythical Pokemon at the time, Zarude, where we see a bunch of them right away playing some music in the jungle, but they are really territorial towards any other Pokemon in the forest, as we then get to see one of my favorite tropes in movies that involve a group living in the jungle, and that's the ridiculously big tree that gets treated as something extremely important, and rightfully so. Who doesn't love a big tree? Then for a moment, everything just kind of turns into the story of Tarzan, as one of the Zarudes finds a baby left by itself and wants to help take care of it now. But the other Zarude basically tell this Zarude, no, and then this Zarude becomes an outcast away from the others as he ends up raising this kid, giving us a montage of the kid growing up a bit and essentially being a monkey man. No, not you, Monkey Man from Hey Arnold. No, not you either, Dev Patel's 2024 film Monkey Man. Enough with all these references that no one cares about except for me, please. Anyway, the kid whose name is Coco is the savior of the jungle, going around and helping all of the Pokemon who are in need of help, along with the Zarude who saved him, who you can truly tell apart from the other Zarude because he has this pink blanket cape that he's wearing. There ends up being this whole conflict about Coco and how the other Zarude see him and how he sees himself, and this gets a whole lot deeper and weirder for Coco, as he is raised to think that he is a Zarude and not a human, with all this changing when he has to face the reality of being a human after getting hurt when swinging into a pipe, and waking up in a Pokemon Center after Ash, who was just in the area, finds him and brings him there for some help. Thanks to being raised by Zarude and not by humans, he doesn't speak or understand human language. But luckily, he and Pikachu can talk, since every Pokemon can speak every other Pokemon's language basically, as we've seen throughout the history of the show and movies. I think it's pretty cool that when Coco is talking with all the Zarude that we can understand it clearly, but when Ash or the others are talking to him, all they hear is him talking like a Pokemon, saying Zar for Zarude, or Coco for his name. But thanks to Coco spending time with Ash, learning about the greater world beyond the jungle and coming to terms with the fact that he isn't a Zarude, he's actually a human, he ends up confronting his Zarude father, wanting to know the truth about who he is and where did he come from, as he then brings him to this facility, the same one we see in the opening credits of the movie, that was this old lab that's now abandoned and run down, and it's also where the blanket was found that Zarude wears now. Once there, he shows Coco the picture he found in this place back when Coco was a baby, showing what seems like Coco's real parents holding him as one, as he also then gives Coco this necklace that was with him as a baby as well. When asked why he took him in that day and decided to be his dad, he doesn't have an answer as to why, but he just felt something in common with this baby, as he doesn't know where he came from or knows his real family, and there are just too many secrets in this jungle. He explains that at the start, he went out in search of finding Coco's family, but from finding this lab in the way he did, looking basically the same as it does now, he knew that he had to truly be the Zarude father that stepped up to take care of him. You can tell how hard this all is for Papa Zarude to bring up, knowing that there is a choice to be made by Coco, leaving him here in the lab to decide his future for himself. When all of this is happening, by the way, do you think that Ash is just listening to them saying Zar, Zar over and over and just nodding his head like he has any clue as to what they're even saying? Because that's what I'd like to believe. Anyway, while Ash and Coco are left there, Ash opens up to him, saying that just seeing him and his father Zarude made him start to think about his own dad, bringing in some lore about Ash's father that we've never had the chance to explore. He talks about when he was younger being made fun of for having this dream of becoming a Pokemon master, but his dad would then tell him something that he never forgot. The map to your goal is inside yourself. If you give up, your dream's never going to come true, mentioning how he has learned the meaning of that through being on his journey with Pikachu, as he then tries comforting Coco by saying that families can sometimes argue, but it'll all be okay in no time. And to that I say, do you think Coco is hearing Ash say all this and not understanding anything? Okay, sorry, I'll stop. Anyway, it's nice that Ash gets to have this moment about his father telling him to believe in himself and chase after his dreams. It's a pretty big breakthrough moment from a character who has never spoken about his dad before this. Going from there, they end up finding a clue that leads them to understanding Coco's real parents' work at this research facility. We then see Dada Zarude struggling with the choices he's made over Coco as he talks to this elder Zarude about him never having kids because he never had parents. And when finding Coco, he doesn't know how to process why or if he even should have taken him in the first place, because he claims to not know the first thing about being a dad. Then the elder mentions not seeing Celebi in a while, and it's like, hey man, I'm opening up about some deep stuff here. The least you could do is pay attention and give a hoot. But he mentions that he hasn't seen Celebi since this Zarude appeared to this elder Zarude, as he continues to mention that it was the Celebi that appeared, then this Zarude comes around, and then after that, he finds this kid, with the elder asking if he thinks there is a reason for all of these events. You know, something more than just being random or a coincidence. He tells him that he possesses his own destiny, and that the answers are only known to the life-giving waters, referencing the waters coming from the Great Tree. At the same time, we see Coco looking back on his time with his Zarude father, seeing how he used his powers to heal a Rufflet, as Coco is amazed, with this power being something only that certain Zarude can do, as he says that if you ask the jungle for help, it lends you its power, its avatar. Yeah. Sacred tree, a fish out of water who's trying to be like one of them, spiritual force powers, people coming after the tree. Oh wait, we don't know that part yet, sorry. So I'll stop for now, but I'm just saying, avatar. Oh, sorry, don't mind me. I'm just waiting for the Fern Gully comments. So now getting to this research facility, they get to learn more about Coco's parents, with them at one point being the lead researchers there. That is until they were apparently killed in a car accident, and this guy, Dr. Zed, had taken over. He also talks about the research being done in searching for this healing water that Coco's parents were the only ones to ever find and successfully bring back a sample of to study, showing off the healing properties it does have. He also tells Coco that his real name is Al, and that necklace his parents left him, well, that has some secrets too. Let me tell you what. With the doctor here scanning it and getting some partial data from it. But all of this, plus the awful news about his parents, has him running away to head back to what he knows is home. Especially after the researchers know about the tree and beg Coco to help them find it, trying to clearly manipulate him by saying, do it for your parents' dream. But like, he doesn't know what they're even saying. He just catches a bad vibe and refuses. Also, real quick, can I just say that the weight of Coco understanding what is being said about his real parents and the way Ash gently speaks to him about it is freaking heartbreaking, man. Why is Pokemon so good at doing this? And I'm tired of crying. It's been like 23 movies or something. When do I get a break? Well, if I don't get one, Coco doesn't get a break either. As after he runs all the way back to where the tree is, mainly so he can be alone with his thoughts, he ends up discovering something on him, as it turns out to be a tracker that was placed there. As Dr. Zed leads a full military-like troop to the tree, and oh, come on! Look at the vehicles, look at that power suit. It's Avatar, man. Sorry, it doesn't matter. You get it. I'm just annoying, okay? Please subscribe for more annoying comments from me. Anyway, Coco tries to stop them before getting stopped, as Ash then comes in to help because that's what friends do, which is a nice moment for these two, but then they both get captured, leading to Dada Zarude hearing Coco's screams as he comes swinging in to start fighting the machines. Coco and Ash are able to get out of captivity, but Dada Zarude has been a bit injured from all the fighting. As Dr. Zed continues to escalate things, pushing further to the point where he's hurting the tree directly, even the other researchers that work under him who haven't been fully on board with the plan are like, hey, you know, maybe this is where we really need to tell you that this is bad. You know, we came here to research water, not destroy the jungle and these Pokemon's home. But he goes mad with power, wanting the full-on source of the water's magic that he believes is thanks to the tree itself. But even more messed up than anything is that Dr. Zed originally was the one responsible for the death of Coco's parents, causing the accident to happen so he could get the research they had. As we learn that Coco's parents truly didn't want him to have it, they understood how sacred this tree was and it being important for the Pokemon that lived there. So it's really only this guy here who's the bad guy. Technically, he almost killed Coco as a baby over it all, leading to his parents sending Coco down the stream, which then led to him being found by Zarude. For the big finale to this film, we get a moment where a still badly injured Dada Zarude pleads for help from the surrounding Pokemon in the jungle, who reject him at first because of how the Zarude colony have treated them, but they do end up helping, getting him all healed up and powered back up more than ever. But even after all of that, this massive epic fight moment where all of the Pokemon in the jungle stand with Zarude and they all try and stop Dr. Zed, Dada ends up getting hurt even worse, causing Coco to bring him over to the healing water, while Ash and Pikachu threaten to deal with Dr. Zed in the meantime. And you don't want to mess with Ash and Pikachu when they're angry. Once in the water, Dada gets to tell him how proud he is of Coco, and that he's glad that Coco was his son. But in this moment, with the waters being weakened from the attacks, Dada Zarude ends up dying. Yeah, I'm gonna need a moment.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Kabuto!
With Coco refusing to give up on being a Zarude, claiming to be his Dada's son, he tries to pull off the power to heal him back up that he witnessed Dada do in that one flashback. With all the other Zarude watching this in sadness going, hey man, you're not like a Zarude, and I don't know if the forest's gonna respond to you, man. Like, it's just heartbreaking right now. But he keeps trying to go for this power. He tries and tries again, screaming out about being a Zarude, believing that he can do this. And then, wouldn't you know it, the jungle ends up responding to him, granting him the power as glowing plants grow all around, being able to save his father's life as he returns to the world of the living. The other researchers end up helping Ash, Pikachu, the Pokemon of the jungle, and the other Zarude figure out how to destroy Dr. Zed's ultimate fighting machine that he's in, and it's a magical scene of teamwork all backed by angelic music as they defeat Dr. Zed. Well, kind of. After that, he tries running away on foot to jump into the healing waters, but Coco stops him. As the day is saved and both Pokemon and humans begin to clean up the mess made in the jungle. In the end, the Zarude colony is more open and kind to the surrounding Pokemon and even accepting of humans now. Coco ends up wanting to go off on his own to help people in Pokemon bond thanks to him being able to live within both those worlds, acting like he's Hannah Montana or something, with Dada knowing that this journey is purely for Coco and having a fake argument to cause Coco to run off on this adventure without thinking twice, as they send him off with a special goodbye salute geyser. And you know, while this scene is very nice, the Japanese version of the movie makes it more emotional thanks to a song that is done, as if Dada Zarude wrote it, talking about his understanding of what it means to actually be a father, and it will make you cry. And it should have been in the English version of the movie, but whatever, at least it still exists in general. And now at the very end, Ash calls his mom to check in, which is nice. Always make sure to call your mother sometimes. But even cooler than that is that Celebi does make an appearance to Zarude, and even better, it's a shiny Celebi, just sitting in a tree and kicking its little feetsies. As Celebi flies around with Zarude swinging next to him, the narrator discusses the symbiotic bonds that tie us all together, as the final shot is the pink blanket, showing the silhouette of Celebi being on it. So I guess the biggest secret of the jungle ended up being the friends we made along the way. No, wait, the family we found along the way. I don't know. That one kind of fits, but shiny Celebi is pretty sick. You know what? Yeah, let's go with that one. And there's probably some more secrets too, but whew, what a movie. The emotional aspect of the film, this father and son relationship between Zarude and Coco, is genuinely so sweet. And just from the opening credits montage of Zarude learning how to be a father, all backed by this tear-jerking song that leads into the title card, is all just so well done and probably some of the best directing in the entire franchise history. And I legitimately mean that. I also appreciate how much more adult a lot of this movie is. Like, aside from all of the themes going on, they weren't afraid to show Coco's parents being killed, basically, or at least how it happened, and literally have the murderer actually being held responsible for it at the end of the day, not coming up with something that brings the parents back to life or just leaving the fate of this dude up in the air for his actions. You actually see him on the news getting arrested for everything, and you know who is really to thank for that? Freaking Team Rocket. They exposed him, and that's amazing. Also, what's a Pokemon movie without some environmentalism thrown in there for good measure? Am I right? It was nice to see the other Zarude end up being there to fight back against the bad guys side by side with Dada Zarude and learn that Coco and Ash are good humans. It just gets so wholesome and nice as it wraps up. Plus, I think the way that this film depicts parenthood, or in this specific case, fatherhood, it's done so with extreme realism of a father having to jump into fatherhood and not knowing what to do and questioning if he even could raise a kid based on him not having that in his life. So with this being the final Pokemon movie as of right now, who knows, maybe they announced one the day I posted this video, but for real, if it is the last one, what a beautiful way to go out. This was an amazing movie, and Ash, while still not the focus, really had a nice role to play here, and I love how open he is about his own father, and just how genuine of a person he is. Thank you for everything, Ash. You're a pretty swell fella. I think it's very clear that with the direction these movies were taken in, that they wanted Ash to really be this traveling vessel that can be anywhere in the Pokemon world, so that they can tell whatever story they want, bring in any Pokemon they want, and decide how much or how little Ash will truly be involved, which I think is a great idea. It would be a nice separate thing from the main anime where Ash is never tied down anywhere and the story can take place at any time during his journeys. Maybe they knew early on when working on the Sword and Shield anime that they were going to eventually retire Ash officially by the end of it, and thus decided to not make any more movies, even with the new cast from the Horizons Pokemon series. But I think a cool way to keep Ash alive and not having it be the focus of the anime is to do just what I said. Make these standalone movies in the world of Pokemon with any setup and story you want, but just have Ash, a familiar face, as a vessel that can always bring you in. I just think it's a no-brainer, but who knows? Now, if this is the last Pokemon movie in general, it's still a solid film to leave these on. But as a last film for Ash, I don't think so. Which makes me question, why did we have to have all this rebooted stuff in the first place if it was only going to be for like 3 films? So now what? Is Ash's story in these movies just over now? There hasn't been any movie since, so I guess it's just all over now. That's it. It's the end. Or is it? Ow. Oh, I think I really pulled something. I guess it's only fair to bring this up and touch on it real quick because of its connection to the actual continuity of the reboot movies. So at the end of Ash's journey in the anime, when Pokemon was releasing the final batch of episodes to end off the series for good, before starting the New Horizons series, there was a very special final episode that wasn't the ending to Ash in the anime's story, but was the ending for Ash specifically from the movie trilogy of I Choose You, The Power of Us, and Secrets of the Jungle, and it was called Distant Blue Sky. Again, this is 100% canon only to this alternate reboot movie universe, and not Ash from the show and every other movie, which is kind of wild to drop this as a part of the final batch of episodes and not have it out on its own as a special, but whatever. I think it's only fair to cover it here since we deserve to talk about the end of what we've been yapping about for so long, right? Well, with Ash back around in his hometown now, his mother tells him that she is meeting his father in town, and Ash gets excited and wanting to go as he hasn't seen his father in a long time, nor have we, ever. In fact, outside of the mention in the Secrets of the Jungle movie, this is really like, the only other mention. Along his way to town at one point, Ash comes across a kid named Sunny, who wants to learn about Pokemon, but he's never had the chance to hold one or pet one. So Ash ends up playing the role of a babysitter and a mentor figure all at once here, as we're then being shown some Mankey by the kid, as one of them has his favorite hat, reminding Ash of when a Mankey stole his hat back in the OG series. But I guess like we saw in the I Choose You movie, some similar events end up happening in this universe as well. Ash goes to get it back for him as it ultimately comes down to the kid's hat or his hat, choosing to give it his own hat and bring the kid his hat back, but the kid moves back every time Ash tries to give it to him. This whole thing then leads us to the house of his parents as they notice the hat in Ash's hand and ask him where he got that from, saying that Sunny asked him to get it for him, as the father calls him a liar while the mother breaks down in tears. Learning more about this, the grieving parents explain that their son Sunny became very sick a year ago and passed away, making Ash think about the kid not being able to touch the Pokemon or eat food or grab the hat. It was all because he couldn't. We get to experience the parents discussing how they deal with grief, as well as see the world now after their world passed away. It truly gets pretty deep and introspective here in a way that feels so unlike Pokemon, at least how your average episode or even some of the movies would be. It's just an extremely different tone here. After Ash leaves, he runs into the ghost of Sunny again, offering him to pet Pikachu as the ghost kid reaches his hand out, but it phases through him, with Sunny not feeling anything. Ash comes up with a way for this to work, using his aura to translate the feeling of touching Pikachu to him, and Sunny is grateful that he can experience this, but when Ash opens his eyes, the kid is gone, symbolizing a task left in this world for a wandering spirit to complete before peacefully passing on. Ash sits down under a tree with Pikachu for a moment, taking in and saying how grateful he is for Pikachu being in his life, not taking these moments and feelings for granted. Ash finally makes it to town excited to see his father, but is met with disappointment when he had already left before he got there due to some emergency coming up. But he did leave Ash a gift. Poetically, the gift is a brand new hat. He needed a new one anyway, but it's not just any hat, it's the OG hat. Later on he ends up crying, but doesn't know why. He just feels sad for some reason. But as the next day comes around, Ash hears the reports of an Entei in the area as he then rushes out into the world to go and experience more adventures under the distant blue sky, because that's the title of the episode. And wow, what an emotional and interesting way to sunset Ash Ketchum. I am severely moved by just how enjoyable, relaxed, and emotional the ending of everything related to Ash was, from the anime and main timeline to this new movie timeline. It's all just so well done and handled with clear care. There was no finality to Ash. He just continues on having journeys as he works to become a Pokemon master. And what more could you want than for Ash to still be out there, catching every Pokemon he can, earning every badge he can, winning every competition he can, and doing what his father told him, to always chase your dreams. Well, there you have it. That was every Pokemon movie, and what a nostalgic journey it's been. While not every Pokemon movie is perfect, there is a nice level of care thrown into each of them that led to each film having their own standout moments, whether that be because of the writing, or because of the growth of the characters, or because of the visuals. And in looking back, it just feels like this perfect snapshot of my life, getting to grow up with this franchise over the past 30 years. It's amazing to see what Pokemon was, how it became this larger-than-life franchise, and now seeing it literally being a part of this shared world culture that brings so many people together. I've met some of my best friends through Pokemon, had some of the coolest experiences of my life because of Pokemon, and even today, 30 years later, things couldn't feel more exciting for what the future holds. I can sit here and get sentimental with you all for hours and hours, but I've kept you here long enough. I just want to say a genuine thank you to Pokemon for being in my life, and a genuine thank you to all of you who are watching and sharing in this fandom with me. I have loved the last 30 years of Pokemon, and I cannot wait to see what the next 30 have in store, but dang will I be old then. Jeez. Anyway, before I become just like some of the movies and get way too existential, let me wrap things up. Tell me in the comments what your favorite Pokemon movie is. I'd love to see all the answers. And as a reminder, make sure to check out my bonus video where I rank all of the Pokemon movies on a tier list. It comes out here tomorrow for channel members, so consider becoming one to support the channel and get exclusive bonus videos like that. Thank you to those who are already channel members. Your support means the world to me. And also make sure to check out and follow me on Spotify for audio-only versions of these videos. They're great for if you have a long drive or something else to do. But thank you so much for watching. Before you go, make sure to leave a like on this video and to subscribe for more videos like this coming soon. But until then, I've been Jordan Fringe. I'll see you later, trainer. And on that day when Ash confronted Arceus, he realized that man cannot compare to Pokegod. Thanks for listening. Read this.